Got into you.
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller. Yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide. Even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Through the final 4-race stretch of the regular season, the chase for a playoff spot turns to the racing capital of the world. We're live from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We welcome you to the 10th race of the 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season. All in on Indy, we continue our route to deciding the group that advances to the playoffs in 2024. We give you the warmest welcome on VSPEED. We're alongside Bradley Cooper in the booth. I'm Kenneth Bueno. Now, Bradley, we've seen it all throughout this 2024 season, but the mindset now turns from points racing to playoff racing. The chances are dwindling. We've mentioned that over the second half of this season, but for the most part, Indianapolis taking its turn first here out of the last 4 races up until Daytona. It will be even much tougher to find your way into that top 16 playoff bracket where you'll be ending up at the Atlanta Motor Speedway with a chance at a Sunoco Cup championship.
Yeah, what I'm seeing in this schedule for the last 4, with the exception of Daytona, are very unique racetracks. Indianapolis, the only place like it in the world. And then you have Dover, the Monster Mile, concrete surface, so we don't go to those very often. And then the egg-shaped Darlington Raceway, which we know how unique the finishes and the racing can be there. It's almost single groove in most parts of that racetrack. So for the next 3 out of the 4 races, it's going to be very difficult. You're going to have to definitely put some time in.
And one thing that's spread across this entire schedule as you look at it here, especially in the regular season, is that there isn't a rhythm of racetrack. You don't have a signature amount of racetracks that are 1.5 or short tracks or road courses. Everything is all mixed up together. Specifically in these last 4, you have 4 very different tracks to drive between the super speedway, the short track, Darlington, which you can call it an intermediate, but it is somewhat of its own type of thing, and then the 2.5 miler at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which we will take on tonight. That surely will bring us a big challenge for sure. Speaking of the standings, this is what we've got so far up until now after Nashville Super Speedway. Curtis Kelly grabbing his first win of the season. That pushes him up to 14th place in the standings. You can see that red line behind Wyatt Brackett, that 16th place car. Those are the ones eligible and in right now for the Sunoco Cup Series playoffs. Bradley, any drivers that catch your eye in the positive or negative direction as we head into Indy?
Well, Austin Peel's starting to put it together. I'm really interested in Austin Reedy, if he can go maintain this lead without a win in this regular season. And then what is he going to do during playoff time? If he's not getting wins in the regular season, you have to win in the postseason. When it starts to playoffs and you start eliminating drivers, the likelihood of you staying in there without a win, it dwindles down considerably, and he'll be kind of outside looking in with all these other drivers getting bonus points to reset.
And you look at Austin, who has done phenomenal over the course of the season, has finished quite well over the last several races. Still, though, we were talking about it prior to getting live here on VSPEED, without a race win in 2024. It took him a little while to get his first in Season 5, but he was able to get one nonetheless, and that came the way of pretty late in the season at Richmond. But if he wants a better run this time through the 2024 playoffs, he may have to get a win in the next 4 races. This is Indianapolis, the stage we have tonight, otherwise known as the Cathedral of Speed. This track clocks in at 2.5 miles, 4.023 kilometers, and one of the oldest on the schedule, opened all the way back in 1909. That was the first ever running of the Indianapolis 500. They've been going ever since then, but NASCAR has had its fair share of history here with the Brickyard 400 that's actually returning this year for the real-life NASCAR Cup Series. And this track, as big and as fast as it is, doesn't have that much banking. Sits at 9.2 degrees on every single corner on this racetrack, so you'll be sure to find the challenges in taking care of the right front and making sure you can carry the speed throughout the entirety of the racetrack. A look at the race analysis before we take you trackside for the starting grid. This race goes in at 160 laps. We go 400 miles, just like the Real Life Cup Series will do not that long from now. They go 50 laps in stage number 1, another 50 for stage 2. Final 60 laps will take us to the last run to the end of the race at 160. We've got 5 tire sets and, of course, the 3 green-white checkered attempts if we need them to extend this race past scheduled distance. Let's take you to the yard of bricks. We're not that far away. Is the starting grid and trackside. Alex Muscarella in the number 48 car picks up what is going to be another pole for driver number 48, his 5th of his Sunoco Cup Series career. Joe Sanchez fought him hard for it in qualifying. Going to be on the outside, and all Chevrolet lockout in row number 1. Colin Forrester for Fast Banana Racing going to be on the inside of row number 2, and your current points leader, Austin Reedy, he's looking to parlay this race into a win. Hopefully, he'll be on the outside of the second row in 4th. Stephen Harlow in the 33, talked about him a bunch over the last several races. He's going to start inside the top 5 in his first ever Indianapolis trip. Zach Wilson, the Texas winner from earlier this season, on the outside in row number 3. Prestige Worldwide Racing has Austin Shoemaker and his number 14 Ford Mustang inside row 4 with Shane White, the fellow rookie, in the number 27. He'll be on the outside in position number 8. Then the winner from 2 weeks ago, looking to go 2 in a row. Curtis Kelly in the 71, searching for career win number 3. He's got Justin Erb on the outside, and that closes out the current top 10.
Richard Swavely is going to start in 11th position with VSPEED's very own Eddie Smith in 12th spot. 13th goes to Chris Progar, Justin Winters in 14th. 15th, Ross Harlow, Chris Shoemaker in the 4 and 16th. 17th, Garrett Brown in the 16 with Wyatt Brackett in 18th. And row number 10 goes to Kip Easley and Alex Huffman in the number 10.
Aaron Adcock in the 17, inside row number 11. He'll be 21st with Logan Sturgeon in the 26 on his outside Brandon Banks, the Dover winner from last season, going to look for his first win of 2024. He's rolling deep in this field, though, 23rd with 24th place James Kunkel on the outside in row 12. Justin Hendry is scheduled to start inside the top 25, but we just got word from race control he will get an end-of-line penalty for missing the driver's meeting. Dakota Curtis, the league owner, on his outside in 26. Sean Kalis, 27th. Chuck Stevens in the 84, back in action from 28th. Jesse Winnington with the Focus Fuel Chevrolet on the inside of row 15, 29th. Lawson Peel did not set a qualifying time. He will roll deep in this field from P30. Ray Rogers, Dustin Reeves, Casey Knighton, and Brad Fulham bring us the end of the 34-car field from Indianapolis. Since Season 3, there have been 3 different winners. Alex Muscarella and Joe Sanchez have never won at this track. In Sunoco Cup Series history, do we have a 4th in the last several years? Pace car is down. Muscarella and Sanchez bring us to green from Indianapolis. This corner, you're almost getting up to 190 miles an hour, entering turn 3, backing it up and lowering the stock car down into the weaving 3 and 4, where we complete lap number 1. Onboard look from Muscarella. He has pulled away slightly from the 55 of Joe Sanchez. Much of the single file action through the top 5 until you look at Stephen Harlow and Austin Reed. They're in this bout for 4th place as it stands back to turn 1, but seems to be typical of Indianapolis racing. Bradley, you want to single out, get right to the bottom of the racetrack. This venue doesn't have that much banking in the corners. You got to carry all that momentum, especially if you're looking towards the straightaways for a pass.
Yeah, it's very difficult to complete a pass. You can see here, still on the outside. He's not clear, so Harlow's still trying to find a spot where he can move up in front. It's not like your typical oval where you can just pull a slide job. You almost have to judge as he gets contact from the 14 going into turn 3, almost turned him.
And Austin Shoemaker getting into this mix. Zach Wilson also getting in a 4-car breakaway back to position number 7 with Austin Reedy back there. It's getting chippy early. Zach Wilson having to cut off the 14, shutting that door on the front straightaway. And this is all what it's about here at Indianapolis, getting to the draft and making the indoor or outdoor passes in turns 1 or 3. Shoemaker having to back out. There's Curtis Kelly, the Fast Banana Toyota Camry sponsored by Xfinity tonight. He's going to be on the inside. Austin Shoemaker, though, holds on. He'll stay put in P7. But this may be one of the more important topics to talk about. This is something we also mentioned, Bradley, 2 weeks ago at Nashville Super Speedway. The one thing in common between Indy and Nashville was that both of them are tracks that are pretty hard to pass at, specifically with this next-gen car. You don't necessarily have the big spoiler at the back to give you a bunch of dirty air, but on the underbody of the race car with that diffuser, it definitely does make the air pretty turbulent down there. Look all the way in the back, Justin Erb having to hold on to the race car back in 12th. He loses 1 to Eddie Smith. It might just be counterpunched by everyone else here. Chris Progar in the back. The 22 of Justin Winters will dial up the replay here. Actually, some contact, so
yeah,
help 3 and 4.
I think Eddie Smith maybe a little bit different breaking point there than Justin Erb. Got into the back of him there slightly.
More
We're seeing
contact.
more of that. Chris Progar almost sideways. The 4's around. Shoemaker's going to save, but the 8 does not.
And Lawson Peel is getting through that. He barely gets by, but Kip Easley, the Drinkin' Bros Racing teammate, finds trouble and therefore brings out the first yellow flag of the evening on lap number 4. It didn't take that long, but you saw what happened with Urban Company. They were already getting chippy in the mid-pack, and you saw exactly how that began with the 7 and the 22. We'll see how this all derived into taking the 8-car for a spin. He escapes with minimal damage, but Bradley, obviously a ton of cars packed in here. It's just a rise up out of turn 1 to this tunnel.
Right there, you see Progar gets a little loose, and then the contact between Easley and Shoemaker. And I think that was the 30 there that was riding on the back Wyatt Brackett. But let's ride on board with the 12 who snuck past this, just barely. On board with Lawson Peel.
Now remember, Lawson started 30th in this race. He had worked up to as high as 27th at the time of the yellow, having to whoa up for his teammate. And some smoke billowing from the back end of that X number 12 Chevrolet Camaro, but he holds on to it, and that could have been an easy scare for Lawson, who we know as a dominant championship contender, has already won several races this year, and that time having to escape the mayhem just a bit with his teammate going for the slide. So a rather harmless caution. Kip Easley, though, is going to take his Chevrolet down pit road just for reassurance and to get some of that damage fixed, and that is also something that is pretty important here at Indianapolis, Bradley. You look at a track that has long straightaways on either end of the speedway. The last thing you want to have is aerodynamic damage, because all of a sudden you get a little crinkle on the right or left front, or really anywhere else, that top speed is going to lower significantly compared to everyone else.
Yeah, aerodynamics very important at this racetrack. You could put it in the same caliber as a super speedway or Talladega, Daytona. You can't have any aero damage or you'll fall behind. So these guys are aware of that. Where you really, I think, lose the most is down these front and back straightaways. So in order to get that good run into the entry of 1 or 3, you're going to have to keep the front end on this. Looks like some guys going to play the strategy here, though, and top off with fuel. Got a few of them down pit road. Austin Shoemaker, Ross Harlow, Justin Erb, all coming in.
And that starts with Shoemaker, who finished 11th in the last race here at Indianapolis for Sunoco Cup Series action. Surprised we're seeing this amount of drivers on pit road, but this is, of course, a 50-lap first stage. You want to ensure that you can have as much fuel as possible to make it to the end of the stage, so possibly a call that's worth noting for the rest of the night. There's Ross Harlow in the 3 car, who finished 3rd the last time we were here at the Brickyard, started back in 15th tonight. He's only dropped 2 as a result of this attempted pit stop on lap number 6, but I guess that's the idea, Bradley, is that maybe take that risk of pitting now and losing some of that track position, but knowing that there are a bunch of drivers with you, A, if you end up on an alternate strategy with a green flag run, but B, if you can save a little under this yellow behind the pace car, that could get you over the threshold, and all of a sudden the guys who have stayed out, maybe they're on the opposite end of the stick, and they have to pit before they know it, so it could possibly be just a solid call and strategy that gets them track position for the end of the stage, and we know how important points have been all season long.
Yeah, half this field would disagree that it was a good call. 15 cars stay out. Charles Stevens, the end of the cars that did not pit, works his way up to 15th. He's up 13 spots now. So there's quite a few guys that stood to gain positions, and sometimes track position outweighs what the strategy is going to be. And if we get a caution later on in this run, it doesn't really mean much for these guys. They can come down top off anyway. So it could be a good call. Could come back to haunt them. We'll have to see. It's still very early in this race to make a call like that and be successful.
Well, in a way, I think these drivers, Bradley, are sort of getting their bearings together of racing here at Indianapolis, because the last time we did race here, it was back in Season 5. We didn't go to this track in Season 6. So for a bunch of these guys, they hadn't raced this track, at least in this competition, in about 2 or so years. So it's been quite a while since we've seen all of these guys collectively together at Indianapolis. We have run this race with next-gen cars before. Obviously, we've run with the Gen 6 prior to that, but for the most part, 1 year is a pretty long time that you're spending between racing from one event in Season 5 to back in Season 7, or now in Season 7, when things have completely changed with the drivers, the obviously new drivers in the field with all of the rookies and everything that's going on, and of course the context of where this race is, the 10th one of the schedule, entering the playoffs in just several months. So we're looking at that. Alex Muscarella and Joe Sanchez, of course, the first row from the drop of the green flag. They will share inside and outside row number 1, this time by on the restart. And for Muscarella, someone who I think we have been either jinxing or I don't know what over the last several races, Bradley, because every time we see him do well, we talk about him, and then he ends up in a pretty terrible position. He did finish 13th, though, at Nashville, so things are slowly looking better for him.
Yeah, I hope he didn't do it again. He's started on the pole 5 times this season. He's had solid starts to these races. There's just always something either midway or during a stage break, or the car gets, the track changes. And that's the ever-adaptive track layer here on the sim racing, is that you're going to have a track that's completely different by lap 140. And so I think that's part of the reason that Muscarella kind of suffers later in these races, is he's just not quite adapted to how these tracks change.
But he's also been at the mercy of bad luck. Remember Texas, where he started up front, and all of a sudden he just got tapped by Jesse Whittington exiting turn 2, and that was it. The race was over on lap 1. Muscarella has been holding the fort down, though, through the first caution. He will lead us through the first restart of the night here on lap number 8 of 160. Still a long way to go until the end of stage number 1. Quick spin with Kip easily brings us under yellow, but the two Chevrolets, the 48 and the 55, will bring us back together for the restart, the first one of the night here from Brickyard. Muscarella and Joe Sanchez on the way. Muscarella with an early jump. We are back under green from Indy, and the 48 is gone. Back to turn 1.
That was a really good jump there as they go into turn 1. He's going to put about 0.2 of a second on Joe Sanchez. A little bit of side-by-side behind him. It looked like Reedy was peeking to the inside of Stephen Harlow. I thought there was going to be a change for 4th, but he backs off. Looks like he didn't get quite the entry he wanted.
Well, if there's anyone that wants to get out of the mess, it's going to be Austin Riddy. He saw a bunch in the first several laps before the caution came out. He was near the group that sort of ignited the first yellow with Keith easily going sideways. Reedy had been getting tossed around a bit through the field with the likes of Austin Shoemaker and company. Now the next fighter right behind him, Zach Wilson, toggling to the bottom. No chance, though, out of turn 4. He'll be able to stay single file, so a bit of a cleaner run through the first several corners for the top 10. Not that much side-by-side action, but you can see how they're wiggling through the front straightaway, wanting to break the draft and get away from everyone behind them. That's the strategy you have to employ, even if you're racing 3,400-pound stock cars instead of really light 1,500-pound Indy cars here around this very big 2.5-mile rectangle. Everyone single file. Muscarella leading us through the back straightaway.
I had the privilege of going to see the IndyCar race here at the Brickyard in Indianapolis, and how those guys overtake is it's always draft, right? So they have to plan and set up that pass, and they'll actually back up the corners a little bit to get that run down the straightaway. And it's kind of neat how different adaptation of racing is employed. Here, you're kind of just floating the throttle. You got to stay in the wake of the car in front of you, and you'll see them snaking all over this front backstretch. It's kind of neat to see them all single filed out. You have to go all the way back to Dakota Curtis here to see some side-by-side with Chris Progar.
And they're both going door to door. Remember, the 7 of Progar was slightly involved in the opening yellow. He had dropped a ton of spots since he started this race in 13th, so he's back in 23rd. The look on board from the Wendy's Chevrolet. This is the similar look to what Noah Gragson drove at Talladega several years ago. I think it was 2022 that he drove this with Beard Motorsports at Talladega Superspeedway, one of the many gorgeous Wendy's paint schemes that have taken the track over the last several years in NASCAR. Dakota has been having a lot of fun with all of his different colors over the year, but everyone all back here either involved in the accident or did take a trip down pit road and just eliminated the possible chance of either having to save fully or having to make an extra pit stop before the cross of the line at lap 30. Jesse Whittington, the onboard look from the 94 Chevrolet for Homan Motorsports. He's got Wyatt Brackett on the outside of him in the 30 machine. Actually, that is a full lock racing for Jesse Whittington. He goes back into 30th place, and good to see Whittington back in action, Bradley. It's felt like a little while since we've seen this 94 car take the track. I think we saw him at Nashville Super Speedway several weeks ago, but ended the race early, finishing 35th, hopefully looking for a better one tonight.
Yeah, and that's a tough break because Whittington's had a pretty solid start to the season. He's had several top 10s here, and then it just kind of all fell apart there about race 7. And you know, you throw in the Sonoma and things like that. Oh, car on the wall. That was Dustin Reeves. A hard impact there coming out of, I believe that was turn 1.
And he is way up the hill here in turns 3 and 4. Again smacks the wall, getting out of harm's way. Ray Rogers and company getting around him, but Dustin Reeves with a pancaked right side of the Ford Mustang. Not a good look for the co-league owner early in this one.
On board with him, and it's right side damage. We talked about how important aerodynamics are here, but the flip side is when you're right behind somebody, aerodynamics in the turns, you don't want dirty air. I mean, it makes it impossible to stay down, and sometimes guys will burn the right front off of this car a little soon, and I think that's what Dustin's starting to experience here, is that right front's just gone.
And it's surprising that we're seeing this quite early, specifically at lap 12. We know that over the course of this race, that inside line will buckle quite a bit, so you won't have as much grip. Look at Zach Wilson getting way outside off of turn 4. Stephen Harlow looking to the inside. I was about to mention how Wilson had been pushing it early on. Looks like those rear tires might have been cooked a little bit at the exit of the final corner, having to blow it up and get that Ford Mustang corrected there for RTR Motorsports. He sticks with it in P5. He had been one of the largest movers early on and had been one of those that is making the charge early on, but the look on board from Harlow shows that Wilson kept at bay for the moment.
Just a little mistake there out of turn 4. I think he had all but completed the pass on Harlow. He just wasn't able to get clear out of 4, and it's because he had to run the outside. Harlow was smart with it, kept him up there, and you kind of run out of racetrack, especially with the safer barrier, the way the exit walls are. It's just a little bit more difficult to judge where you can and can't be on the exits.
You know, and Zach Wilson had a wonderful start at Nashville Super Speedway several weeks ago. He started inside the top 10, was working into the top 5, and we put him on the pedestal pretty early, Bradley. We talked about how fast he was to begin the run, and then all of a sudden it sort of fell apart. He finished 33rd in that race, and that has continued a streak of finishing outside the top 20 and extended that streak to 4 races and counting. It's felt like ever since the win came his way at Texas Motor Speedway, things haven't been on par for the driver of the 51, Bradley. And you look at the mentality of a driver as you be at the top, then you go to the very bottom over the course of the regular season. What is that like to deal with, from going to a race win, then understanding you're locked into the playoffs, and then just having the bad luck get to you week after week?
I think some of it, too, for Zach is that he relaxed a little bit, right? Not pushing the envelope. He had the win. He's locked in, right? So I think that as a mindset kind of puts you on the back burner. You're not putting quite as much practice in. You're not up front, out of the wake. You know, you start slipping back out of the top 10, things get a little crazier in these races. As you can see, top 5, they're pretty spread out. We do have Reedy on the back bumper, but you start getting deeper in this field, there's a lot more side-by-side going on. You can see that these guys right on top trying to pass each other for position. And I think that's part of the reason why he got into those situations and the bad luck found him.
It's all about the momentum of winning a race, knowing you're locked in no matter what happens from that race up until the beginning of the playoffs. And I guess that mentality could lead you into some poor situations, but even then for Zach Wilson, carrying a lot of speed throughout several races, even after his win at Texas, but it just hasn't fallen right for him. The cards haven't been dealt him in the right way, so it's been pretty tough for Wilson to get back onto the rhythm, and he does need to do that in several races. Will be playoff racing from Atlanta, so he does necessarily need to lock in a sense. Brandon Banks, Garrett Brown, this door-to-door action for one of the last spots available inside the top 20, and right behind them, the 2-time series champ, Lawson Peel, who rolled off from 30th on the grid. Remember, he had been right around Kip Easley in the spinning car that brought out the first yellow of the night. Obviously, some teammate work there between the 54 and the 12 entering turn 3. Some Big Good Rose Racing teammate action, but for Peel, of course, coming down pit road, left him with this track position here, trying to break into the top 20 for the first time tonight.
And he just helped the 54 draft right on by, so Banks is clear of Garrett Brown, but he's trying to pull Peel by as well, and this might hinder his entry into 1. I think the 16 might be able to go back on offense here. If he doesn't go, he's a little too high there on the entry of 1. I was going to say, if he pinches the 12 down, he can defend that, but he's not pushing the issue right now.
It's tough to, specifically here at Indianapolis, and back to the point I made about how low this banking is, and Indy is looking at Dakota Curtis right behind, smacking the outside wall hard. Chris Progar also following him into it. It was a synchronized slam at the exit of turn 2, and there's James Kunkel for the fight back to turn 3.
And we're seeing problems for a lot of guys back here hitting the outside wall. Dustin Reeves was one that got it twice, and now the 43's got a little stripe on the right side. The Wendy's bag a little torn up. Trying to hold it together. You can see, again, outside the top 20, lots of side-by-side racing. And if you're up here in the championship hunt, it's got to be frustrating getting to sit back here and just struggle to pass one car when you know over the long run you might be faster than some of these guys.
And in a way, you probably double guessing yourself on, did that effort to come down pit road at the first caution mean anything? Will that give me the benefit of the doubt at lap 50? If you're already struggling with the race car now, it'll only get worse as this run progresses. And one thing that we'll bring up, at Indianapolis specifically, and it goes the same for Nashville Super Speedway, is that the track is single groove. You're not going to find that much in the middle or higher lanes. So a lot of the time, you have to cling to that curbing or the white line at the bottom of the racetrack. And with this over-refresh Phase 1 update that we had several months ago on the iRacing service, that track lane, as cars continue to run around it, it's going to get slippier and slippier. It is going to get even worse to drive as the run progresses. So that means it's going to get a little harder to pass, and it's going to get much tougher to bring the car off the corner with as much speed as possible. But it almost feels like one driver has escaped that situation, and it seems to be Colin Forster picking up pace, catching up to the race leader.
Yeah, he's got it down to 3/10. It was shorter than that. It was under almost 2/10, and I don't know if he's starting to feel the draft, maybe the dirty air, and he's not pushing it up there he's just hanging with Alex Muscarella. Again, these are cars that haven't hit pit road. We still have 15 of those guys out there that will have to come in, and based off the numbers right now that I'm seeing, I don't think anybody can actually make it unless we have another caution. I think those guys that pitted once can make it to the end. But these guys up front, they're guaranteed that they're going to have to come down pit road. So right now, it's just about getting a lap led. Does the 31 of Forster really want to go up there and push the issue? Or does he want to focus on how fast can he get in and out of pit road?
Seems to be 14 cars that decided not to enter pit road on the first yellow flag of the race, and that does include Aaron Adcock, although he's fallen back to 18th. So on the screen, you're looking at the top 13. Those who did stay out, everyone else behind for the most part, took an effort down pit road, about 5 to 6 seconds. A lot of them just getting a splash of fuel only. But again, that could make the difference between having to make a pit stop from here on out to the end of stage 1 or not. Justin Winters having a door-to-door battle with Logan Sturgeon, them getting physical, entering turn 1 like Dua Lipa. Sturgeon back down low on the 22. Winters will back out and let him through, and there are some of those who did come down pit road. Austin Shoemaker, Justin Erb making this one a contentious position. This one 11th, 12th place on the racetrack.
Yeah, just outside the top 10. You're starting to see the guys that came down pit road and topped off creep their way back towards that 10th position. But it's still a long road. They've split off, though. I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Ross Harlow, it's a really big gap from 16th to 17th. We're talking almost 2.5 seconds that Harlow has lost, and he's 7.5 from the lead. So what you were saying back just a moment ago, was it worth it? I don't know. I don't think it was for a lot of these guys that came in and topped off. You're down, 10-plus positions for some of these guys. Down 16 for Wyatt Brackett. He's at 34th position. Remember, he got damaged from that a little bit on that first caution, but there's definitely problems here for Wyatt Brackett.
Yeah, and in that group that you mentioned with Ross Harlow, Lawson Peel, of course, in there, Brandon Banks, you look at Aaron Adcock, Garrett Brown, several of those that did come down pit road during our first yellow flag of the evening, so a lot of them on the back foot, and maybe you can make the argument that if these guys do pit, it will give those at the back the upper hand, but if the distance continues to grow over the run, that may just be nullified as this thing moves forward. The onboard look from the race leader, Alex Muscarella, hasn't let up over the first 22 laps of this race. He'll try to bring us through halfway in stage number 1. And this is a great sight to see for car number 48 as he looks to lap Wyatt Brackett in the next several laps. There was a possible threat by Colin Forster, but backing away is that 31 car. Muscarella continuing to dominate here at Indianapolis.
And Forster actually falling back to Stephen Harlow for the 3rd spot here. I think Harlow, after playing defense against Zach Wilson, has kind of turned up the heat. Last time by, he was a little bit quicker than Forster by about 0.2, so looks like he'll probably be able to get around him. Now it's just, well, when do we come down pit road? When do we want to make that? And I do want to say that Wyatt Brackett did come down. I think he came down a second time here to get maybe some of that damage repaired as we see him pass for second.
And there goes the 33 down low. The 31 almost getting into him, but Stephen Harlow bullying his way to second place. It did grow the gap to the race leader, but an effort rewarded for car number 33, who works off of a top 5 several weeks ago at Nashville Super Speedway, and that was his second best finish of 2024 behind a 4th place finishing effort that came the way at Texas Motor Speedway. We've talked a lot, Bradley, about Eddie Smith being the Rookie of the Year contender, but late in the regular season, you might have to call Stephen Harlow's name a little more. The speed is getting there, and Harlow, I think, likes these tracks that he's seeing over the last several races, because tonight, he's got a fast one.
Yes, he does, and a lot of success was going to Eddie Smith earlier in the season. He's kind of faded away quietly, and Stephen Harlow is filling that void here these last 3 or 4 weeks, and I like to see some more of these rookies have good seasons, especially since the news we got there last week. These guys put a lot of time to get to this level. It's good to see them have success in their first season.
You know, guys like Eddie Smith, the Stephen Harlows of the world, Shane Wyatts, of course, Jonathan Cofield, all of those that we've been thinking about over the season. We obviously love to see them do well. I think the series loves to see them do well. And a lot of times, rookies have a pretty good history running in this Sunoco Cup Series. A lot of them take the field by storm. You look back to Shane Wyatt, who is dealing with a lot around him, front and back. Alex Huffman, the fellow rookie in front of him, who picked up a win this season at Talladega Superspeedway. He's leading this charge from 9th on back, and this may be the most congested we've seen the field throughout. This is entering turns 3 and 4. Logan Sturgeon and Justin Winters at the back of this, but Bradley, what do you make of this group here?
This is the split off from the cars that were probably a little bit quicker, but they started a lot deeper in the field. Now they're working their way back up. Eddie Smith up 6 positions, up 11 for Huffman. So some of these guys that weighed the track position game, now they're able to show that they're fast, and they're maintaining this spot. As Eddie Smith passes for 6th, Zach Wilson back to 7th, and now Swavely side by side on the inside here for the 10th spot.
Good to see car number 32 there, who started in 11th, and he's only gaining 1 now, just stepping into the top 10, having to save that Camaro from getting out of arm's reach. And here comes Shane Wyatt with a push from Logan Sturgeon. This fight definitely not over yet. Richard Swavely was one of the previous winners here at Indianapolis and is one of 2 active winners from Indianapolis over the last several seasons. It's him and Lawson Peel. Alan Dobbs was the winner back in season 4, but of course he doesn't race in the Sunoco Cup Series anymore, so Swavely is one of those that's trying to replicate the stoke of the fire that he had several seasons ago here at this very speedway, although he's got a fight on his hands to still worry about back to turn 1. Look at this, nobody helping car number 32 down low. The freight train effort on the outside. No match for Swavely. The slide job in 1, unsuccessful, and here's the Simrap Market Chevrolet to fight back on the top.
He really sent it into turn 1. He almost ran out of racetrack in turn 2, but that's what you have to do at this place. It is so difficult to pass it. Sometimes you just have to be a bully and let a guy know, hey, I'm willing to hit the gas pedal early and take you to the wall with me. If 3-4 laps of them guys running side by side, and look how much time they lost to Huffman. So Swavely's saying, hey, we got to go. We can't do this forever, and eventually we're going to run out of racetrack if you don't let me by.
I was about to say that. You make a great point, Bradley. Look at that gap. It's grown significantly. It just took maybe 1 or 2 corners of them going side by side, and all of a sudden, all the momentum you had on the group in front all of a sudden dissipates, and Richard Swavely will hold on to that position, but at what cost? And it may just be a lack of distance there. Justin Winters sliding underneath Logan Sturgeon. He's going to move on by. That is one of the 2 Allen's Legacy Racing Ford Mustangs, along with, of course, Alex Huffman that we saw move up into the top 9 as it stands here at lap number 28. And they finally get themselves situated. It seems like it's been a while since we've seen this mid-pack get themselves together, but at the moment, there's the car up front, leading now by 1.7 seconds and counting. Look at the charge by Colin Forster that has gone nowhere. He's dropped back to 5th, and there's the battle for 2nd, at least what may be the battle for the position behind the 48. Joe Sanchez and Stephen Harlow may go blow for blow in the next several laps.
Last time by, 2/10 quicker for Sanchez. He's turned it up here late. Just past that halfway point for stage 1, and a little clip with the wall there by Stephen Harlow. He's going to have some right side damage from that. I don't think it's going to affect him too much, but he is the lead car here, so that's a 10th here, a 10th there every time you do that.
You know, there are a lot of lucky charms in the world. Some may call it the 4-leaf clovers, some may call it bird poop, some may call it something else, but I think if you're looking for a lucky charm here in this Sunoco Cup Series, it has to be the driver of the 55. Joe Sanchez has been one of the most consistent drivers over the season. Here he is in third. That seems to be where he finishes often in the Sunoco Cup Series. That's where he's finished the last 2 races this season, and he only has 2 finishes in 2024 outside the top 10. It's good to be a driver like Joe Sanchez, and I always seem to think about that quote that he gave us shortly before North Wilkesboro and after Bristol Bradley, where he told us that it had been maybe over a year since he had driven the next-gen car. I'm not sure if I've seen anyone get acclimated as fast to a car as I've seen Joe Sanchez do this season, here and now with this series. Sanchez runs nicely now in third. He's catching up to Harlow after starting in second tonight.
I mean, getting acclimated to a car after not driving it for a year, you talked about it in the pre-race about how they hadn't been at this track in a year, so combine that with the other thing you said, and I mean, he really shouldn't be where he is right now as he gets a pass there. I think that was Harlow coming down pit road, but to see the 55 just come out full swing, like picking up right where you left off, that just proves the talent level of that guy. It's just raw talent, and then to practice on top and get back into the car and relearn everything, he's doing a phenomenal job. And again, consistency. He's one of the few guys that hasn't had the horrible luck, you know, success early and then horrible luck to follow up. So I think right now with his season, he's another guy that we need to pay close attention to come postseason.
It takes a ton of skill. It takes a ton of discipline. Sanchez now moving into second as Stephen Harlow creates the first ping down pit road, and there are several others with him. Stephen Harlow, Shane Wyatt among those that are coming into pit past halfway in stage 1. That's the idea, that those who came down pit road in the first caution of the race, they want to avoid this scenario, having to come down now and losing all of that track position this late in the stage with about 19 left to go. Guys like Lawson Peel, they're staying out, moving into the top 15, and there is your race leader. He's called for pit road here on lap 31.
They had to do it sometime. We knew that these guys were going to have to come down pit road. Unfortunately for Muscarella, this could bury him deeper in the field. He could be, you know, back in 10th or worse here after this is all said and done. So he's going to have to be careful now. That he knows he's fast, but dirty air is going to change the way this car is going to handle, and he hasn't had to deal with that yet today.
Well, there's the 48. Jacks up on the right side of his Chevrolet Camaro. He should be up and away in several seconds. Swavely, there's Chris Shoemaker down pit road, and we await the calls next by the race leaders. Joe Sanchez now, Austin Reedy back in second, Eddie Smith settling into third. It seems like Smith will be the next one to enter pit road off of turn 4. He's going to bring several others with him. Those are the 2 Allen's Legacy Ford Mustangs with him, Huffman and Winters, and that means look at all those drivers, Bradley, that pitted earlier in this race. 27 laps ago is when Justin Erck came down pit road. He sits 5th. Then behind him, Austin Shoemaker, Lawson Peel, and the list goes on.
Yeah, this pretty much confirms that everybody's going to have to come down one time. Well, you know, 2 times for some of them, but I'm just saying, like, everyone's going to have to come down for this green flag pit stop. No one's going to make it to the stage break. And so this does help Alex Muscarella's case of maybe he knew something about those fuel numbers. If we stay green, he's good to go. He might get back up here to the lead. He had a 1.7 second gap. I think he's going to cycle back through to the front. But is anybody up here saving? Are they going to try to push the issue? Because we still have a few guys that did pit once already, and they're still out there on the racetrack right now. Justin Erb leading that group.
Well, a lot of the good news is that some of them have been able to use draft from those in front or behind them, so it's helped them save a bit of fuel. But looking on board with both Reedy and Sanchez, your top 2 leaders, none of them are hitting the clutch pedal going into any of the corners, so best believe they're pushing this one till the tank runs dry. Not sure if they have enough based on the caution earlier on that could have helped those who stayed out use the clutch pedal to save and coast just a little bit, but may just be getting closer to that edge, possibly to the danger zone, if you will. The onboard look from Sanchez, still the revs high in the 7,500, 8,000 range, so no worries at all for these guys whether they can make it or not. However, still the possibility that they enter pit road. Garrett Brown tagging the outside wall, giving it a little kiss, and Reedy having to swerve out of the way and curve him.
We were on board there, Reedy having a little connection issue, and I know that Reedy travels a lot, so he's not always in his setup that he wants to be in. Always racing from a different venue, but that was the 16, and just for, you know, that blink of a second that Reedy blinked out, he wasn't quite seeing the 16 of Garrett Brown. So that could have been really bad for Garrett and Reedy both.
That's something that we always talk about with Austin Reedy, is that he is never in his house to race on iRacing. He is always traveling for his job, so a lot of the times he'll send us the setups and it'll be in a hotel room on a wooden desk. He'll find a way to prop up a laptop and a racing setup and he'll go racing. That's why a lot of times you see him blinking on the racetrack. That's his internet connection to the iRacing servers. It's not always the best just because he's usually in a hotel room. I believe Race Control is just letting the 96 know about his blinking issues because, like you said, with that 16 of Garrett Brown, that could have been calamity had it been any closer between those two. There's Kip Easley, who was involved in the first yellow of the night. How about this rebound, Bradley? He's slid up into the top 15.
Back up to 13th now. I mean, only one way to go from what happened to him is up, so luckily able to mitigate, didn't get any damage from that really, and the car was easily, bumped back in, and he's back out on the racetrack, turning some decent times. He's a little bit off the pace compared to the guys at the top 10, but he's still plenty fast enough, and he's picking up these positions. He's back above where he started this race.
Solid news there for Kip Easley. We love to see him do well, and obviously with what happened to him earlier in this race, you'd figure that he would have enough to keep going, let alone he does, so that's good news. There's Dakota Curtis on pit road, car number 43. He is in and out without a trace. Gonna take that Wendy's Chevrolet Camaro out for a spin, or out for a drive back to race pace. There's Zach Wilson, who has found his way up into third. Remember, we talk about the bad luck that he's been on as of late, including 2 weeks ago at Nashville Super Speedway, where he ran nicely inside the top 10 and was in contention for some stage points, and he did get some stage points in the first one. Then unfortunately, that's when he had disconnected around midway through about stage 2, so unfortunately he wasn't able to continue, but Wilson in a good spot, 13 laps to go until the end of stage 1. I don't know, Bradley, do you see this going to the wire on fuel between all of these guys who have stayed out? And I think when you say all of them, you're thinking maybe 4, including Logan Sturgeon back in 6th.
I don't know. I mean, these guys have pushed it way further than I thought they would, and some of these guys came in and got 4 tires. So I think with that, you got 5 sets available. If this race stays green all the way to the stage, that's assuming that it will. We're pretty spread out. I don't know what to think of this, Kenneth. They are spread out all the way around this racetrack. And we got a static camera. They're literally 2.5 miles. There's cars on every inch of it.
And look at everything in between the front and back straightaway. That's what shows you how ginormous this track is. I think there are always graphics on either NASCAR on NBC or NASCAR on Fox when we visit Indy, just how big it is, of what you can fit inside the stadium or inside this venue. Yeah, you can fit a ton of things in between the front and back straightaway here at Indianapolis. That's how large this track is. The infield road course that NASCAR raced at for several years until returning to the oval. Of course, the Indianapolis dirt track that they have on the inside of the venue. They have a full golf course that goes inside the racetrack, so it is monumental, this cathedral of speed. Is there Zach Wilson on pit road with about 10 laps to go in stage 1.
We made the mistake of parking on the wrong side of the racetrack, and we were going to be in turn 4. We parked in turn 1. So we walked the entire length of the backstretch to get to the tunnel turn. It took us 40 minutes to get to the other side of that racetrack. That's how big this place is.
You know, I thought Daytona was huge, and it is, of course. It's another 2.5 mile track, and I remember being there several times and walking to turn 1 from turn 4. It is a trek, super long trek across the speedway. I can't imagine how much more arduous it is to do it at Indianapolis, as I think we are getting our answer, Bradley, to the question of can these guys even make it? It seems the answer is no. Joe Sanchez, Logan Sturgeon are in. Austin Reedy is the only one left that have stayed out up until this point.
The Reedy definitely going to have to come down here. And back to what you were saying, yeah, these guys do it in the blink of an eye. You know, the Indy cars that were going around the backstretch there, 13 seconds, gone, you know? I was just watching how fast these guys are going around here. 53 seconds last time by. That's, you know, less than a minute to get around this whole track in 2.5 miles. That's a good clip here as you're watching Austin Reedy, the 31 of Colin Forrester, just in front of him at threat of going a lap down, as Reedy will come down pit road finally with
giving
about
grace
10
to his
laps.
teammate. How about it? Letting his teammates stay on the lead lap, but necessarily Austin Reedy does need to come in on pit road. He does here, and that will in turn hand the lead to Lawson Peel. That seems to be the mastermind strategy between Peel, Erb, and Shoemaker. Some of those leading cars on the alternate strategy, they will stay out here. They do have enough fuel to make it all the way to lap number 50. Erb gonna kiss the outside wall. That gets him away from car number 12 with 9 to go in stage 1.
I thought Erb was going to have something for him. As you see, the handling starting to go away on the 20 machine. Topping off with fuel and not taking tires will create that situation. It gets a little more unstable. These tires run out. You might have practiced there running this car out of fuel, but when you top the tank back up, back end gets really wobbly, and I think Erb's starting to feel that here with just 10 to go here.
Well, you're working it on 35 lap old tires for these guys, and actually just about 41 laps, given the fact that these guys didn't even take tires on their trip down to pit road, so they've got some worn rubber on their cars. The look on board from the Home Depot Chevrolet of Justin Erb, he tallies back to almost a second behind your race leader, Lawson Peel, as Austin Reedy just got passed on the racetrack for 14th. Alex Muscarella gets on by. He's the freshest tire car in the group that's working his way through the top 10, but the question really resides, Bradley, do they have enough time to even crack the top 10 and get stage points out of this one?
I would hope so. For as many laps that this 48 car got the lead, I would really hope that he gets stage points at the very least. But at the same time, that's what happens when you come in and take 4 tires. The rest of the guys ahead of you, they didn't really do that. So Ray Rogers, he took 4, but he was a little bit better on the exit of pit road. I think he didn't have quite as much traffic to contend with, which is why and he also came down a little bit earlier than Muscarella as well. So he had more time on the racetrack to gain some of the positions back as well. So he's one of those guys that, you know, I think he's going to get the best benefit from having to pit and take 4 tires.
Hey, you're right, but with Indianapolis, as big as this track is, we were just mentioning how big the infield is. Well, the racing surface is probably even longer, if not just as big. And when you talk about a track that clocks in at 2.5 miles, you're looking at a ton of distance that you have to cover on fresh tires. And it's not like Nashville several weeks ago where it's only 1.3 miles or so, and you can make up the difference on fresh rubber. Here, it's a little harder to do. You were watching the battles inside the top 10. It was looking like Justin Hendry and Ross Harlow were about to make a side-by-side effort. That was going to be for P6, and in fact decided here. How about these guys working through the field nicely? Justin Hendry had an end-of-line penalty to begin this race, and the 1 car has moved up to top 6 position. Some great points for the stage up for him as Ray Rogers enters pit road this time.
Short on fuel, I think, for the 23.
I was just about to mention his move up through the field. He rolled off the grid from 31st. Jesse Whittington as well, the 94 car, pits from inside the top 10. So they make the errant call of not putting enough fuel on their race cars. They will have to pit the extra time, and it'll be 5 laps to go left in stage 1. And clear ahead is Lawson Peel. There's James Kunkel in. I think more drivers than we anticipated. Bradley made the mistake of putting a little less fuel on their race cars than they thought they would need.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate to find that out when Justin Erb's coming back in to top off. So does that mean Lawson Peel's going to have to come in? These guys are all coming in just about time to close pit road. So if Peel knows he can't make it, back around this racetrack during a pace lap, he's going to have to come in now. He's only got 2 laps left to decide.
Oh, it's getting close here at Indy. We are looking at another strategy race, and that'll make it even more fun considering we've got a 60-lap final stage. If we stay green all the way, we could end up with a situation like this coming down to the fuel mileage game. Lawson Peel, though, no signs of slowing down. He's actually clicking it into 4th gear, so he's elevating the rev range, which means he has no concerns that he'll run out of fuel in the next 5 or so laps. And there is Alex Muscarella finally seeing the light of day. He's moving into the top 10, so at least he'll escape stage 1 with some points in his pocket, but probably not the playoff point that he was searching for. And here's Lawson Peel on pit road with damage right in front of him. That is Colin Forrester in a heap of trouble. What has happened to the 31 car? It was entering pit road with Jesse Whittington.
Contact. Whittington had just came down pit road.
Yeah, so he did. I think he was coming in again.
I don't know if Whittington got maybe a penalty for speeding on exit or what happened, but he had to come back in. I don't think Forster knew he was coming with him.
Well, here's Logan Sturgeon
71
diving
on the
under
wall.
Curtis Kelly, getting a piece of the wall. Forster then left to react, and Jesse Whittington going right under. I think Whittington didn't even want to come down pit road. It wasn't a scheduled stop.
Yeah,
He's coming in because he has no other choice. And gets the 31 slammed into the inside wall. That is under the racing line, so no caution, and Colin Forrester is junked.
That's exactly, I don't think either one of these cars was coming into pit. And this all happens right in front of your race leader at the moment, which was loss of peel, but it happens off the racing surface. Now, we're in a whole different mix now. We've got Ross Harlow up front by about 4.5 seconds, but 4 fresh tires behind him, and Muscarella's chasing him down big time.
It is a large gap in tires between the two. Ross Harlow hasn't pitted all race long for Goodyear Eagles. Alex Muscarella came in 15 laps ago, and it's a 2.8 second gap with about 3 laps left remaining in stage number 1. Boy, this one is getting interesting. Lawson Peel had pitted. He had ended up in 13th as he merged back to the back straightaway. And you're right, Harlow is clutching. He is trying to get every last drop saved on this car.
All the way back, probably a good 1,000 yards in front of the entry of 3. He's saving every drop he can, but that lead that was just over 3 seconds a second ago, look at it dwindle down under a second as they come out of turn 4.
And there's that 48 car breaking out of line. Ross Harlow, no choice. He enters pit road. Alex Muscarella, the pole sitter, back to the front with 2 left to go in stage 1.
And that was a call right there from Ross. He knew he couldn't make it back around for a pace lap, and they're closing pit road this time by, so he had to come down.
Yeah, no other choice. But Ross Harlow cuts it close, though. Race control had to shut down pit road entry just as soon as Harlow made his way in, so no black flag given to the 3 car. Harlow is in. We'll see where he spits out with the rest of the field, but Alex Muscarella all of a sudden changes the tide. We thought they would be on the other end of the situation, not being able to make it and losing the track position, but all of a sudden, the mayhem strikes for all of those who pitted after the first yellow of this race, and it is back to glory for car number 48. Alex Muscarella sees the white flag in stage 1, searching for his first stage win of the 2024 season.
For all the laps that he led, he deserves it. He has the car to beat right now. 4 fresh tires. He's also got the strategy to beat. He called it perfectly. Very few guys decided to do that. And barring that we stay green, I mean, these guys that are up here in the top 5, there's only a handful of them that stayed on fuel, and the rest of them, you can see, Kenneth, they're all 4-tire stops. So just genius calls by these guys.
And we know there's going to be a difference between those who want to pit on this stage yellow and those who maybe want to hold back on the next set of Goodyear Eagles. But rounding 3 and 4 for the final time in stage 1, it's Alex Muscarella, who has seen a ton of bad luck over the season. This is a good sign for sure. Running to the Art of Bricks, Alex Muscarella, the stage 1 winner from Indianapolis.
Looks like Eddie Smith is going to come across for that second position. Austin Reedy, who was back there. They're pretty deep in this field here. We're still really spread out, as you see Stephen Harlow just now crossing the line as we get the yellow. But, I mean, look at the spread. We're talking 17 seconds, Kenneth. And that was just in that 40-lap stint.
That tells you just the situation of, number 1, who came down pit road when, but 2, just how big this track is. We're talking about the long walk, 40 minutes from turn 1 and turn 4. Well, this is looking like 17 seconds on the racetrack in translation. Alex Muscarella is the stage 1 winner. He will pick up the iRacing official pace car, and it'll wait for him on the front straightaway, and all of the other cars will get their wave arounds and such. But the 48 car brings us to the end of the stage. I guess this is what happens when you have a situation like this where everyone's all over the place. You got to take a while to get them all riled up. The 48 still up race pace, finding the pace car. I think he's got it though. Turns 3 and 4, turns 1 and 2 rather as well. He'll find them. Everyone else is looking to get back on the way. So That was a very interesting stage one, Bradley. I don't know how we could really discern which was the winning strategy out of all of that. It seemed like Muscarella had it going, but even then, you look at guys like Austin Reedy, who did have to pit. He pitted about 10 laps ago. He's inside the top 3, and even then, some on older tires. Shane White, who pitted 20 laps ago, he's here as well. So it's really a mixed bag when you look at who's in the top 10 and when they came down pit road during the stint.
Yeah, I couldn't really quantify any of that data, Kenneth. It was hard to judge who actually made the winning call for that stage. And, you know, we worried about Muscarella. He had actually fallen out of the top 10, had a long gap of over 8 seconds before he even got to the lead. And then we started seeing about, 5 to go in the stage. The entire top 10 come down the pit, and Alex Muscarella had one car in front of him. That was Ross Harlow, who decided he wasn't going to make it to the end of the stage, had to come down.
Well, this is the call for everyone, it seems. Nobody picking off to the right side. Everyone is entering pit road this time by on behalf of maybe Dustin Reeves and several others. Lawson Peel, I think, is going to stay out. Yes, he is. So the Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolet makes the gamble here on his set of Goodyear Eagles, which are only about 5 laps old. Everyone else comes in this time by, led by Muscarella.
So here, Kenneth, I got a question. Do you take 4 tires again? Do you do that? We got 60 laps in that final run. Are they going to run out of tires before the end of this thing? That's another question that these guys probably are concerning themselves with. If we were guaranteed another yellow, so I don't know.
Well, look at that. Logan Sturgeon says, I don't want 4 tires. A 7-second stop on 2 Goodyear Eagles gets him ahead of the group. He ends up 8th place, and there's how Alex Muscarella falls in the rest of the order. Everyone else with 4 fresh tires. They do have at least several other sets, maybe 3 or so, until the end of this race. They're going to have to use them quite wisely. Field down pit road at the end of stage 1. It was a strategy cluster, but we've got Lawson Peel in the race lead, ready for the restart in several laps. You're watching coverage of the 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season live on VSPEED.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller, yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide. Even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Ready for stage 2 from Indianapolis. The biggest concern, tires. How many do we have of them left? how many have the field used already? Welcome back to our coverage on VSPEED, where alongside producer and colleague in the booth, Bradley Cooper, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Lawson Peele and Brandon Banks are set to get us back under green here on lap 54 of 160, ready to begin the second stage of tonight's action. We were talking about those who pitted twice for tires on the first stint up until now. It's really about how much they have left. We'll dive into that topic as it moves forward, because you have 5 tire sets, including the one you start on in this race. They may not have enough left for the end of the outing of 160 laps total, with a ton of time left and a ton of laps left to run. Pace car will make that left for pit road and makes the pivot. Lawson Peele and Brandon Banks turn their eyes to the flag stand and the yard of bricks. The Chevrolets bring us back under green. Stage 2 underway from the Brickyard.
So yeah, Kenneth, we were trying to measure who had the winning call, but I don't think in this stage, as you see Lawson Peele off to a great start, Brandon Banks pulling away, I don't think they can do what they did to get that stage win for Alex Muscarella and some of these guys that got a top 5 out of that. Because if you pit twice for tires like they just did, once before the stage and then right at the stage, you're going to run out of tires. There's no way you can make it 60 laps to the end of this thing.
Oh, you can't, and specifically with fuel as well. We know how they're very different in their own way. You can go a little while longer on the set of tires than you can on the tank of fuel. We're looking at about maybe 35 to 40 laps for a bunch of these guys just before they're going to get right to that threshold to visit pit road without any fuel in their tank. But yeah, you're right, for drivers like Muscarella and those who pitted twice for tires over the first 55 laps, how do you hold back for the rest of this race, and how do you play this one forward now that you know that guys up front like Lawson Peele, Brandon Banks, they're only using one set of tires up until now?
Yeah, and they knew that. That's why we saw the 12 and the 54 stay out. And so now, you know, only 9 or so laps on these tires. They really didn't have to race them hard. They just came back out on the racetrack, accepted the fact that they didn't have the strategy for that stage win, but they're going to have great track position to restart up here in the front. And so it's pretty even, and Clean Air has been very kind to this top 4 as they pull away from, I believe that's Ross Harlow in the 5th spot.
It's not about saving the tires, too. It's about, of course, using the distance and the gaps to your advantage, specifically Clean Air. And here comes the 54 Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolet, pushing Peele up the racetrack. Brandon Banks, the new race leader.
I don't think Banks really bulleted his way around. That's a teammate there. I wouldn't think so, but Peele just got up out of the groove and then allowed the 14 of Austin Shoemaker now to challenge, but he's going to fall back in line. Thought we were going to see 2 spots lost there from Peele.
And look who's there. Justin Hendry, Ross Harlow back in 4th and 5th. This one is definitely not over yet, and the accordion might just curl up and let everyone in this pack get right back into the mix. To look on board from Hendry, who I think right now is having his best race of the 2024 season. We haven't seen him much running up front. He picked up an end-of-line penalty for missing the driver's meeting tonight. Well, it looks like it hasn't phased him much. Here he is sitting 4th.
Yeah, and it says 21 spots gained, but let's just go ahead and add another 10 spots to that, because he has drove through this entire field here today to be in this top 5, and he's still within hunting distance of the 14 of Shoemaker here as they go down the backstretch.
And mind you, it's been several months since we've seen Justin Hendry in action. His last start was at Charlotte Motor Speedway back in early June, so it's been almost a full month since we've seen car number 1 in action. But Hendry, who finished 35th in his last Sunoco Cup Series start, making the most of this run here in Indianapolis. He holds back, though, on the 3 car. Ross Harlow, who's right behind him, looking to take position away, and starts to build further back behind them. Logan Sturgeon peeking down low. Eddie Smith right behind as well, almost 3 wide further back in the pack, but this one getting close. Harlow having to play defense back to turn 1.
These guys were shuffling all over the place coming out of turn 4. I think the same thing that happened to Harlow happened to the 43 of Dakota Curtis. I think Ray Rogers got loose in front of him, and Curtis had to check up or he was going to get to the back of him. The same thing happened to Harlow with Hendry down the backstretch. And now we're seeing it again as the 26 is in the wall and everyone fans around to get by.
There's a big problem for Logan Sturgeon, and a huge hit from Wyatt Brackett behind him. Several cars hit the outside wall. Brackett is stuffed into the grass, and there's our second yellow of the race, but for an on-track incident, third overall, Justin Erb is in it, and Wyatt Brackett takes his car straight to pit road. His night is over.
Oh, that was just a matter of I didn't see it coming. On board with the 30, he's going to see all these cars fanning around, but he doesn't really see why. And so he stays up here on the outside. He has the 19 to the left here of Brad Fulham, and he can't go anywhere.
And Logan is stuck to that outside wall. Brackett doesn't notice in enough time, and by the time he does, it is way too late. And his car goes sailing for the inside wall, and everyone else who had to get around that, all of them suffering some issues. James Kunkel, that bright neon greenish number 45. Watch this from Sturgeon. It's an ugly hit.
I believe Justin Erb gets a piece of this as well. There's the 26 with the initial contact coming out of turn 2, and here's on the 20 car. I think he's just behind the 30. He gets it too. I think he hits just about the same here. He gets a piece of... That was a piece of Wyatt Brackett that he hit.
And that is immediate suspension damage, and you can possibly say that is the derivative of the main incident with Logan Sturgeon. As he got into Eddie Smith rising out of turn 2, the car goes hard into the outside wall, and with that you can easily break the right front toe link on this car. Hence why Logan said on the voice chat a little earlier on that he could not get off the wall. That car was not willing to steer at all, so a impromptu yellow comes out here at lap 59, and this is the call. Eddie Smith and several others staying out, but those who took the first set early now coming in this time.
Smith's going to get a lap led there, but led down pit road. You've got Ross Harlow, Austin Shoemaker, pretty much the rest of the field outside of the top 5 now. And I think we were talking a bit about that as well, as where if a caution falls, where does it kind of even these guys back out? You see some fuel-only calls here with Peel and a few others, but you know, this isn't going to be like the first stage where these guys are going to take 4 tires. They're going to have to go all the way to the end of this stage at lap 100.
And this is why this call may be necessary for those. They want to make sure they can offer the little more insurance than usual. But even then, after an early pit stop, they still had to pit later on under green. So you still can't call these guys guaranteed making it to the end of stage 2. Now, you can also give or take the 5 or so laps that these guys ran under yellow prior to the beginning of the second stage. But even then, still a tough task for these guys. And yeah, quietness out of the 12. He is one of those saving. That's the extra initiative here to save as much fuel as possible.
He's thinking about it, Kenneth. And we were just talking about those extra laps. I think that changed the equation a little bit. These guys might be able to do it this time. And think back to Ross Harlow, who was just shy of it. I think he could gamble and actually make it. And he was doing his best to win that stage. But the gamble, will it pay off now? These guys are all pretty much dedicated to they're going to pit. If we stay green, they're pitting on the stage break. No one's coming down early for 4 tires. We might see a handful of guys come in and shortcut if they're outside the top 10, not getting stage points. But the rest of these guys, they're pretty much dedicated to that yellow for the stage 2.
Well, if the rhythm stays the way it did from stage 1, you're going to look at a very different list of those who get points in the stage and then those who ultimately get the lead at the exit of it, which turns the question, is Chris Progar and several others hitch down pit road, is it worth to sacrifice those stage points available just to make sure you have the upper hand at the end of the stage looking onwards to the restart?
I think this time around it's a little bit different, right? Because we said it's 60 laps, and so the strategy change with all of the distance that's going to be ran in the final stage of this race. I think it would benefit you more to have that track position, you know, because you're not going to be guaranteed another yellow to get back on cycle or pick up any spots. So I think now this is kind of that time where you would make that call. I was surprised that guys did what they did in the first stage, but now it's kind of making sense. They're playing both sides of the same coin all the way through this thing.
Well, the silver lining for the situation for those like Alex Muscarella or like in Austin Reedy, potentially Eddie Smith, for those who lost the track position at the beginning of this stage but got the points at the end of stage 1, you know, a lot of them desperately need it. Specifically Alex Muscarella, that one playoff point and the stage win gets him what will be necessary to get over the hump, beat Wyatt Brackett, especially now that the 30 car is knocked out of this race due to the most recent yellow. That could get him over the hump and into playoff territory. Eddie Smith, who led the points for a little while or was chasing down Austin Reedy, had fallen back over the last several races. He needs a little bit of a jolt through the season. Of course, Austin is only amplifying his gap to the rest of the field. Richard Swabley, who has spent a ton of this season pretty far down in standings, back in 23rd entering this race. So maybe it's not the track position they want for the restart after the stage, but those points in essence may be the best situation possible for them. And speaking of Eddie Smith and Richard Swabley, well, they will be inside, outside, row 1 for this restart. Lap 62 with about 100 laps left to go. In the chase for the yard of bricks, Smith left to decide when to go. He launches now. Green flag back in the air from Indianapolis, and it is a stellar start for driver 87, Alex Huffman, looking indoor on the 32 car for second place.
The rookie's taking over the top 2 spots, the 10 to the inside. He's going to get clear of Swabley in just one corner. Going to try to chase down Eddie Smith, who led some laps now. He's going to rebound from that time off and some bad luck there. We saw bad luck at Charlotte. We saw decent luck at, I would say, Sonoma. I think he came out with a top 10 in that race. So, but it's been kind of quiet here from the 87 team ever since Bristol. I think he's just kind of faded or had something happen to him all the way through.
Also missing starts, certainly the case for Eddie Smith, but he is pulling away handily over Richard Swabley and Alex Huffman. They continue the bout for second place. It may just be 3 wide in a moment's notice. Shane Wyatt, though, will back out and play the help on the 32 car. Lawson Peel back there as well, making it 3 cars on the inside lane. Swabley clears for second. Wyatt shuffles up the racetrack and gets Huffman almost into the outside wall for the short chute.
And here's Dakota Curtis all over the back bumper of Lawson Peel as they went into turn 1. A lot of different guys bump drafting there to the entry, and we are 3 wide just behind him. Joe Sanchez, actually Muscarella in the 51 of Zach Wilson. Shoemaker stuck in the middle. Where do you go, Harlow? Where do you go?
He goes down low, chooses to play with the 51. Shoemaker backs out, and all of a sudden the 3 wide dangerous look entering turn 3 turns a little safer this time around. Harlow will try to force the 14 up the racetrack. Austin Reedy goes for the slide, got tapped by the 54, and he holds on to it. Wonderful save by Reedy.
Excellent job there with the 96. The whole race flashes before your eyes there when you touch that grass. And the rumble strips at this racetrack aren't like the other ones. They're actually part of the old racing surface. They're made of the bricks, and so they don't really respond the same as a normal rumble strip. You get down there in that grass and it gets slick really fast.
It does, and we've seen many drivers take their left side tires down there, and what happens? They go for a loop. You got to be really careful, especially with all of the speed you carry and not as much downforce that you have with these 670 horsepower 4-inch spoiler race cars. Dakota Curtis washing way up the track in 3 and 4. The onboard look from Sanchez, high and by from the 55, goes down low in 3 and 4. This fight's still going on. The auction up for 7th place.
That 43 is struggling a little bit here on the exits of these corners. That's why he lost so much ground to Lawson Peel. He was racing him just a moment ago. Ross Harlow was able to make quick work, and now the 55 of Sanchez still trying to get clear of all of this. 43 back up to the front of it, and Muscarella tried his luck. What we talked about earlier, the 48 hadn't really experienced too much of this dirty air. We know that he's fast to lead this race, but how fast is that car when it's deep in traffic for 10, 20, 30 laps?
Deep in traffic with a slippery inside lane. It's a combo that could be really tough to master over the course of the night, because Muscarella had spent, like you said, all of this race in clean air, but also with a lot of this track still not rubbered up as much on the inside lane. How much do you alternate your approach as Zach Wilson powers on the outside of Dakota Curtis? This fall off turning huge for the 43 car. Stephen Harlow moves on by. Austin Shoemaker and Austin Reedy. Why not the Austin sandwich? 3 wide in turn 1.
Quick work, though, and I think the 43 knew that that wasn't going to work out well. He lifted off and let the 96 of Reedy go, but you can never really tell. It's who blinks first, and I think wise move there with the 43. Knows that he's struggling as the 96 actually gets into the wall out of the exit of turn 2. It's that dirty air, and again, a lot of these guys haven't had to struggle with that yet today. They've been pretty much spread out since about lap 13 or so. Grouping these guys back up, it's affecting the way that they're getting into this line. The track's not rubbered up yet, like you said, Kenneth, and I think right now it's just kind of surprising these guys how dirty the air is. It's making the car loose on the exit.
And a ton of them in this group back to the top 10. They finished inside the top 10 at the end of stage 1. Muscarello, of course, the winner. Zach Wilson clocked in at 9th place at the end of the stage. Austin Reedy settled in 3rd place. Stephen Harlow was the last car to get a point in the first stage, finishing in 10th. So a ton of these guys in a similar territory, but it's getting much more difficult to drive. As here's a fight for the back of the pack. Contact! That's Brad Fulham, Aaron Adcock. Physical for 19th.
I think that caught Fulham off guard a little bit. He didn't expect to get squeezed. He had no more track left there. He will get clear of Adcock for the 18th position, but he's got company with Justin Winters moving up to the back bumper. Again, this is a group of guys that we talked about earlier that were battling outside the top 20. They've worked their way up there. Justin Hendry, what happened to him?
It just seemed like a tire fall off. For the one, he has dropped back to 17th as a result of this recent run and could be under fire from Brad Fulham, Adcock, Winters, and the rest of these guys that continue to settle themselves for position. Winters has to run the middle lane looking for the arc down in turn 2, which is known as one of the more dangerous parts of this Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Countless times in Indy 500 qualifying, you see cars go right up into the wall there, rising out of the corner. Seems to be a trouble spot tonight. There's a look on board from Brad Fulham. How about the nice camera on the bottom right of your screen? Look at that big Atlanta Motor Speedway banner. Beautiful.
Nice. I'd love to have a wall that's decorated, but I got a green screen instead. I got to hide all the clutter from the basement. But one of these days, we'll have a man cave like that. Brad Fulham in 18th right now, started 34th. So he's raced all the way from the back of this field, with the exception of the end of line for Justin Hendry, who's just in front of him. And, you know, a lot of these guys have rebounded from the start of this race. Maybe qualifying doesn't go your way, but you stick it out. We still have 31 of those guys out here on the racetrack.
And look at that top 4. All of them have started outside the top 10, so it just shows you, like you said, track position at the beginning doesn't matter as long as you master strategy and just find yourself in the right place and the right time. But to what you talked about with the green screen, I think that's the life of an iRacing broadcaster. You got to make your room either look green screened or a little spiffy when you go live on the air. For me, maybe not the best, but I'm still a little jealous of, you know, Blake McCandless, Evan Pasoko. I know that Evan has a NBA trophy in the back of his room. He's got a Jeff Gordon piece from one of his older cars. Blake has all of his hockey stuff with the Carolina Hurricanes. You know, just gotta dress up the room a little bit. But that's what's fun about watching the cameras for a lot of these guys. You can see the full-on setups and see what kind of racing memorabilia they have in the background.
So just less than 2/10 there. Huffman last time by, 2/10 faster than Eddie Smith. He is chasing him down. The top 3 starting to accordion back together. Smith falling off just a little bit here these past few laps. Remember, the 87 stayed out there on lap 60 where the rest of this field came down pit road, and you've got fresh tires behind him here by about 1.5 seconds. So Joe Sanchez is one of the first cars that came in. Shane Wyatt actually at the tail end of that. And so these guys on fuel, they're going to stretch it a little further. Have you checked in with Lawson Peel? Is he still on that strategy of clutching this thing?
Seems like for now the answer is no. He is still in the high rev range in 5th gear. We saw earlier that he was shifting down to 4th deep in the long run. We could still see that as a possibility, but for now the 2-time champ remains stable where he is in 4th place. Shane Wyatt right behind him. Look at this top 10. You're seeing 4 rookies in this group. Eddie Smith, Alex Huffman, Shane Wyatt, and then all the way back to Stephen Harlow. The rookies are popping out and showing him like Kendrick Lamar here at Indianapolis tonight.
When you got 4, I believe that's all 4, is it not? Up here in the top 10?
It seems like it, yeah.
I think Chris Progar maybe is the only other guy that I can think of that's on the rookie season here. Could be wrong on that.
Well, it's looking good nonetheless for the yellow striped band. They are all in the top 10 looking for some stage points.
Contact,
Chris Progar having to get a contact there on the inside lane. Well, that's some side-by-side action between him and Chuck Stevens. That one almost settled in for 28th. Progar looks like not happy over the iRacing radio as he got tapped not once but twice at the exit of turn 4.
Let's see what he's not happy about here. He's coming down the backstretch. Remember, Progar had problems there at the start of this race. He was involved there with Kip Easley, had some damage from that, and then he's just not really recovered position-wise. Here we go into 4. I don't know if the 84 gets loose or runs out of racetrack.
Well, this is looking like our co-main tonight. Oh, the contact there from Progar actually got dealt some right front damage.
I see why he's upset, but at the same time, the 84 had to lift. He was going to hit the wall, and that could have been worse. He will get clear of him here. This is back in 28th position, and I think maybe voicing the opinion or whatever, have frustration is probably the underlying reason. As you see the 51 of Zach Wilson, super loose on the inside. Muscarella losing positions. The guy that led over 2/3 of the first stage is finding himself losing spots. He's almost out of the top 10 here, Kenneth.
They're pushing the 48 to the edge like the Juice WRLD record. Austin Reedy down low. He's got Stephen Harlow pushing forward on the high side, but dive in turn 3 by the TJ's Dean Toyota Camry pushes him into 8th place. Boy, Muscarella is on the fall off here. He's starting to try and stop the bleeding now, but the hemorrhaging only continues here. That's what happens when you end up on that outside lane, Bradley. If you do not have any drafting help, and if you don't find the niceness and kindness of the other drivers around you, you could easily drop 2 or 3 spots in one corner or more. Just becomes a way of using the draft to your advantage and just finding your way not in that middle lane, because it seems to be the trouble spots. Kind of like the middle lane at Richmond. You really don't want to be there. You can get out of harm's way, but it can be very difficult to. And I guess with the point that you just made, Bradley, about Muscarella being in dirty air, the answer now is not good for the 48.
Yeah, and I think guys around him know he dominated the first stint of this race. The first stage was him. So if they could put him behind them, they stand a better chance of winning themselves. And you don't want to allow this 48 back up front, because he proved all the way through that stint that he could run up front and lead this race and stay up there. Pulled away 1.7 seconds before they all came down pit road. Ends up with a 4-tire call that works out in the end, but now he's buried deep in this field and he can't pull the strategy that he did in the first stage. It's going to have to go back to the drawing board here for the 48 team to figure this thing out.
Well, look, you're looking at Muscarella, who sits in 9th. He is on 15-lap old tires and counting. He did come down pit road for a 5.6 second stop, and much like everyone around them, they didn't really take 2 tires. A lot of them didn't take any and just took fuel on the way out. But those up front, from 1st all the way back to 4th place Shane Wyatt, they're on 23 laps and counting on their stint. So it is, for them, a very interesting difference. And they, mind you, they also did come down to pit road, but for 4 fresh tires and fuel. Where do you see this strategy lining up here at lap 75?
Well, I was just about to say that they could probably go and then right to the stage, and I saw a little clutch moment there from Muscarella, and he's downshifting. He's kind of going back on offense, as you see a little contact there with the 51. Dives it deep into turn 1. He's going to get clear back up to the 8th spot. But as far as the strategy, how's it going to shake out? I think, lost appeal some of those guys that came in and topped off. I think they stand to benefit the most here. Track position is going to be key. You want to make it to that caution on that stage, because if you have to short pit, you're going to lose all those spots, and it's just not going to cycle out quite right.
And the track position is withering for Zach Wilson. I don't know if you saw that out of turn 2, but he had to hold on to the race car. Boy, that was a whale of a save for Wilson, the former policeman. You look at him on the outside of turn 2. He had to save this thing dramatically, fighting with Alex Muscarella. There he is on the outside of Stephen Harlow. Watch this. 1, 2, 3. Bam, the car snaps out of action in turn 2, and he sticks with it.
Able to hold on to it. That could be another race ender right there. And turn 2 exit, well, it sneaks up on you. Got to be careful, but he's stopped the bleeding for now. He has Brandon Banks behind him there. I believe 4 fresh tires for the 54 car, running in 12th, so maybe he could stand to get some of those spots back. If the 54 gets in front of him, he can draft his way back up there. I think right now, these guys are starting to play the strategy in their heads. Maybe some guys up on the box talking to them. What's the strategy call here? Kenneth, I really don't know. This is a weird stint, but I think with the final stage coming the way it is, it's the longest part of this race. I think we just stay out as long as we can here. Try to make it to the stage end.
Well, I think this will be the more calm stage out of every other part of this race that we'll have tonight, because the first one seemed to be a lot of experimentation. Those who really didn't know if they could top off after the first yellow and make it all the way to lap 50, but just because you have the downtime of those who come down pit road after lap 50 in that yellow, and then the several laps that it takes to get the field back together and go for the restart, I'd say it's a little more comfortable this time around, but you're right. When we get to 60 lap stage 3 till the end of this race, even with the caution laps counting, you're looking at about 55 or 54 laps until the end of this race, which means you're back to square one. We've got drivers calling for pit road. It appears Richard Swavely having a problem, washes up high out of 4. He cannot enter pit road this time by because Austin Reedy and Lawson Peel will have something to say for it. They go underneath. Swavely drops 2 spots to P6 in turn 1.
And was the 32 calling out that he was pitting? Did he make a mistake trying to enter pit road, or did he just make a mistake on the exit?
Well, it just looked like he washed up high, and Austin Reedy was setting up the pass, so there was no way physically for Richard Swavely to come in.
Unfortunate there, and he ends up losing, what, a good 3.5 seconds there to the lead. He was on the back of Alex Huffman just before that. So that's a lot of time lost, and we're approaching, what, 20 to go here in the stage 2. You don't want to lose it now. I mean, this thing's going green. They're spreading out. You don't want to lose any time on the racing surface.
Well, we will cross the line for what will be 20 laps to go until the conclusion of stage 2. Eddie Smith, the race leader. Alex Huffman back in 2nd. Shane Wyatt 3rd. Austin Reedy in 4th. And like we said with Lawson Peel, he slid right by Richard Swavely in the last lap or so. He has moved into the last position available inside the top 5. And what is going to be interesting is who will strike first onto pit road. We know that there is an at least 8-lap difference between the main pack leading this group and everyone else who pitted about 20 or 19 laps ago. So it's an 8 to 9 lap difference for the most part. That does mean a lot here at Indianapolis with how big this racetrack is. Does it matter how close you cut it with the entry to pit road as Alex Huffman finds his way to drop the anchor? Here comes Austin Reedy on the inside after Shane White found his way through to 2nd place.
You're asking who's going to do it first. I think it's these 3 rookies that were up here in the top 3 for a moment there. Alex Huffman, Shane Wyatt, and Eddie Smith. They have about 8 more laps on this stint than the rest of the guys behind them. They're going to be the first ones to come down. And now this is the judgment call. Is it just a top off of fuel? I think yes, in my opinion, because again, we've only got 3 tire sets left, especially for some of these guys that maybe burned them. And I think right now with the way this is shaken out, you've got enough distance here that you're not going to lose a lot of track position. You probably could cycle back out midfield here and then, you know, just save your stuff there until the end of the stage. Again, I'm preaching, we got to go 60 laps, and I really don't know what the call is with that.
We're preaching to the choir in confusion. We don't know what's going to happen here at Indy because everything is all over the place. But for the most part, and for what it's worth, no yellows for the most part here in this 2nd stage. We did have the early one with Wyatt Brackett, Logan Sturgeon, and the rest of them. You look at the 3 cautions we'd have tonight with a total of 8 lead changes, including the one that Eddie Smith had for the restart to keep himself up front now, at least 2.5 seconds over Austin Reedy. Other than that, it's been a pretty calm stage 2 from the Brickyard, which means not that many trips down pit road, and I guess not as much confusion as to when and how you will have to play your strategy for the end of the stage. There's Richard Swavely finding his way underneath Alex Huffman. Joe Sanchez offering some assistance. The Chevrolets working together down low on the 9.2 degrees of banking, and Huffman goes from hero to zero here, falling out of the top 5.
Yeah, I think right now he's just maybe a little bit in conservation mode. He's approaching that pit stop window here on lap 30, and I think this is kind of splitting the run for them after that caution. A little contact there between Harlow and Sanchez. That is for the 7th position. Harlow's actually kind of on offense. These last 3 or 4 laps, he's faster than everybody with the exception of Austin Reedy in this top 10.
Well, this is something to know, but he washes up in turn 2. 3 wide staggered, now back to 2 wide. Stephen Harlow picking up the pace. He's down low, entering turn 3.
He's going to present the nose here to the inside of Sanchez. Not the preferred line there for the 55 entering 3, but he'll get a good run on the exit. Can he pinch down on the entry? He will, but Harlow's having none of it. He's going to run him up the racetrack. Might run him out of room here on 4. They're going to stay side by side drag racing down the front stretch.
Well, this is where the brothers work together. The Harlows staying put on the inside lane. Ross giving the shove to Steven. Brandon Banks going up high to help his teammate to abreast. Several rows deep into turn 1. Harlow makes the contact. Hip checks the 55. They are still side by side in turn 2.
And I didn't have the camera at quite the right angle, but you could see it from the back of that 33 that they touched, and they touched good. It's a wonder they were both able to hold on to it, and I thought for sure somebody was going to get sent to the outside wall, and you saw that bump draft down the front stretch. Ross Harlow was pushing there. That was a little bit of an offset, and I was kind of worried that it might hook the 33 setting up for turn 1.
Well, it's surprising that we're seeing Ross Harlow as far back as he is. It hasn't been the best mid-season stretch for the 3-car and the Valhalla Project Chevrolet Camaro. There he is, sitting inside the top 9, eligible for stage points still with about 15 laps to go until stage 2 concludes here from Indianapolis. But he was part of the duo, him and Lawson Peel, that laid 82% of the laps in our last Indianapolis race back in season 5. Now, let alone that was only 80 laps compared to the 160 we have tonight. You basically double it entering season 7. But Ross is known as a solid driver at this track. Peaks underneath Joe Sanchez in the attempt for 8th place, but seems like more of an average run for Harlow. Not as much standing out as we'd expect him to, but still a solid run tonight regardless.
Was able to push the 33 pass, but now it's kind of went stagnant here. He needs help from Brandon Banks, and I don't think he's going to get it. Banks is actually allowing a little bit of a cushion here in front of him. I think Banks is going to go with the 55 here on the outside and stand to gain another position as they bump draft down the front stretch. That'll get Sanchez clear for sure, but can Banks follow? It looked like Harlow actually lifted a little early and let him in.
And didn't want any fight going into turn 1. Didn't want any hair pulling as well, so he ends up back there. He settles nicely into 10th. Almost had a look at the 54 for a moment at the short chute between 1 and 2 and the Drinkin' Bros Racing teammates. Then again, back in tandem, the 55 and 54, purple and blue, getting underneath Alex Huffman, who continues to drop back through the top 10 with 14 laps left to go here in stage 2. Now for Drinkin' Bros Racing, they've got 3 of the 4 Chevrolets inside the top 10 as it stands. Kip Easley, the one missing in action, as he currently sits in 22nd, but some solid news, Bradley, for DVR. Overall, they have the team standings lead going into tonight. Good news seeing 3 of them inside the top 10.
And the one leading this group here, Lawson Peel, and just mastermind of strategy that he has pulled off to put himself in better position throughout this race. He's gained 27 spots up here in the top 3. If you ever worry about where he qualifies, don't, because he always finds a way to be up front at the end of these things. And it's just, it's always kind of, I don't know, admirable. At the same time, I think Lawson can qualify. I think he absolutely could. I think he finds a little bit of fun in racing all the way through this group of cars and running his race just to see if he can do it sometimes.
It's the challenge that a lot of eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers do in official sessions on, let's say, a random Tuesday at about 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern. You can see some of them entering the AFIG session, and many of them won't qualify on purpose because, again, they like that challenge. They like to weave their way through the field, and it's also a sense of confidence that they know they can go through the field in amount of time. For Lawson Peel, I'm not sure whether it is that overconfidence from the 12, but it's definitely a sense of security that he knows he can weave his way through the field cleanly and with a ton of pace behind that Chevrolet. And now with the elephant in the room that Mario Miranda made the announcement several weeks ago after Nashville that he will leave the Sunoco Cup Series. He will not make any starts from here on out. Peel definitely has the further incentive to separate himself further from everyone else and claim himself as the best ever Sunoco Cup Series driver. Right now, he's picking up the pace, and the Iceman is hunting down the top two, your top three, all separated by only 0.8 of a second back to turn one.
Wouldn't worry too much here if I'm Eddie Smith. I think these guys were all going to come down pit road here. But Eddie's stretched out a lot further than I thought he would. He's going to probably hit the pit road within the next lap or two. Probably about the time that Austin Reedy goes by, if he does complete the pass. I think that's when Eddie's going to come down, and whatever call he's decided to make here with tires, he's going to pull it here. And this is laps led. Again, this is Eddie Smith's day to just get some laps led, get the points back on track. Remember, he was tied for the points lead here on week 6, and since then has fallen back to 8th coming into today. So he needs to just have a good night, keep it all together, get a top 5, or get a stage, get some stage points, whatever he has to do to turn this thing around.
Well, Eddie is preserving himself. You saw the wiggle out of turn 4. Austin Reedy made the move up high, and Smith just let them by. Turned up the calmness and said, all right, I'll let you two through. I'll probably get you guys later, and I'll stay in possession for some at least decent stage points with about 10 laps to go. Here in stage 2, the better decision to preserve his race car rather than fight the top 2 leaders. Now Austin Reedy searching for what ultimately would be another added stage win. We've seen many from the number 96 in 2024. Lawson Peel right behind, and this fight is not over yet.
No, it is not. And this is kind of the flip side of that coin there when we saw at Sonoma, the 12 coming down early in the stages and allowing Reedy to have the lead. And we questioned that a lot, Kenneth, but now does Peel kind of regret that? Because he's going to have to compete with this all the way through this stint. He's got 10 laps left to do it. Can he get it done?
Peel is knocking on the door. Reedy has to keep the fort built and collected. The onboard look from the 96 as he watches on. Eddie Smith has fallen back further than a second between these 2 leaders with 9 laps to go. And I'd imagine for Eddie, Shane Wyatt, Richard Swavely, they're now working on lap 40 of their stint. You could imagine they're probably teetering at the edge of making it on fuel. And I was about to ask what might be the money time, Bradley, to enter pit road over this stage. So far, no one has taken the gamble.
Little downshift there from the 32 of Swavely. The lap before they close pit road. Well, here you go. Richard Swavely down pit road. Looks like Eddie Smith. They're all coming in now. That was about how I predicted it there for Smith. That once they got by, it was going to be a lap or 2. And now it's a matter of, I think you take your 4 tires because no reason to come down and pit a second time.
Playing the game of sacrifice. Smith, Swavely, Alex Huffman are in. And for these 2, the question remains, do they have to pit several laps before the end of the stage? We know that Lawson Peel did with at least 3 or so, 5 laps to go, I guess, before the end of stage 1. He cut it rather close. Austin Reedy also did as well. He pitted a little bit earlier. We don't know if they will come down in the next several laps by, but for right now, conscious of their situation at the front of the field. Joe Sanchez in a fight with Ross Harlow. That's for 5th place. Now Brandon Banks finding his way underneath. Door to door for P6.
Harlow looked like he was kind of falling out there a little bit earlier, and now it's back up to 11. He's going back to 4th position, up into the top 5, and he's lost a little sight there of Stephen Harlow, who was on the offense a little bit earlier in this run, but looks like their lap times have evened out, and I think Ross Harlow could get a top 3 spot here to finish this stage. Remember, he was the guy that stretched it out the furthest in that first stage of the race, almost made it on fuel. This time around, I think he's good to go.
And this is what you call returning to form for Ross Harlow. He's got Brandon Banks hounding in the rearview mirror, and the trio of Chevrolets. And the fight not over yet. Into fourth gear for Harlow. The run out of turn 3 in favor of the 54. Seems as though Harlow is doing a nice job of entering the corner and lunging it in, but he's loose off the final corner. Here comes Banks, peeking down low for fourth place.
Banks got the air off that spoiler right on the exit, and that's probably the worst time to have a guy sticking the nose on the rear end. Got loose. He's going to try and maybe a crossover here. Nope, he'll stay in position. Top 5, though. You're going to hold on to it. It's almost some contact. They both get loose there in the entry of 2.
And here comes Harlow back for the action. Banks had to slow up just to avoid hitting the outside wall. Joe Sanchez has one decision to make. He sticks with his teammate. Give him the bump entering turn 3. No match for the 3 car. Banks is going to give him the fight for it. He lunges ahead. Harlow getting back down low. He's got the spot.
Well, this was the last corner that Harlow got loose. He's going to hold on to it better this time because the air off that spoiler allowed him to get some downforce this time out of 4. 5 to go here on the stage.
And there's Lawson Peel. Time is running out on the stage. Peel is down low in turn 2. Fight for the race lead on the back straightaway.
Almost some contact there. Reedy ran out of racetrack. He's wiggling. He's trying to get that thing back underneath of him. These two going to duke it out for 5 laps. Peel already shown that he's ready to go by. Couldn't complete it in turn 2. Into 3. A lower line touches the grass there briefly to get the run. As they go in turn 4, I think he's going to have him here.
Well, how many times has Peel been in this exact situation, fighting toe-to-toe with another driver for a stage win? Peel surges ahead. He's got the race lead with about 4 laps to go left in the first stage. Richard Swavely, who has fallen a lap down after visiting pit road, he earns to unlap himself back in 25th place. And that only further adds the gap between these two, dealing the dirty air between the 12 and the 96. Right in the middle is Swavely, who may have to catch up to Peel in about the next 500 feet just to make this a race once again. But he stays behind, gets the run on the back straightaway, and this is where you cruise if you're Lawson Peel.
Absolutely. Take it home, get another stage victory. That's what you got to do here. We talked about the rough start that Peel had, but since then it's been stage win, race win, top 5s, doing what he has to do. But a challenge back here from Reedy. I think Swavely kind of gave some dirty air to Peel there on the entry of 4, and that allowed Austin Reedy back to the inside as they drag race down the front stretch.
Richard Swavely said, I'll give you dirty air first, but I'll give Peel dirty air next. And now we're door to door once again. Reedy back down for the race lead. We know how tough it is to hold the bottom. Peel washes up, entering the short chute, almost tags the wall. Reedy back to the point.
This is the exciting stuff, Kenneth. I didn't think we would see this much of a battle here, especially with guys that, you know, they came down and just topped off with fuel. I didn't think guys would push it this hard or have anything left to actually pass each other. So it's impressive that the 96 and the 12 haven't gotten into each other with how unpredictable this car has been today.
Now for the group of cars that came down pit road earlier in this race, Eddie Smith, Richard Swavely among those in that group, they went until lap 39 of their stint. For the end of stage 2, these drivers, Reedy and Peel, will be at lap 40. Can they even make it on fuel? We are back door to door for the lead. Swavely checking up, Peel up high, and Reedy fighting back down low. There is no way to gain anything off the middle lane, and Reedy will hold on for now.
Well, they better hope they can make it because pit road's closing. 96 really loose off the exit of 2. They're going back in another dogfight to the inside down the backstretch. Not enough draft there for the 12.
Crossover off the exit of turn 2. Peel down low with the effort. He's got the better lane into 3, but he'll sail it into the corner. Reedy will have the chance to go right back underneath. He sneaks down low. He's got the move underneath. Reedy this time with the beneficial line in 3 and 4. We are still even. Peel gonna smack the wall. Reedy up high. He'll get the run. Peel falling back, and Reedy back to the lead. Final lap in stage 2.
That's not the mistake you want. That's unfortunate that it happened there. because I think Peel was going to give him one more fight here, and if he timed it right, he could get him on turn 4 exit and probably get the stage win. But there's just a slight little miscalculation there on that exit, and I think with the lap traffic just kind of interfering a little bit, you know, not Richard Swavely's fault at all, but, you know, I think that's why Reedy kind of had a fighting chance after Lawson probably cleared him, could have walked away.
Well, the question is, how much damage did Lawson Peel pick up there on the tap of the outside wall? It seems as though it won't be that much. He'll stay in second place, keeping tabs by about 3/10 to Austin Reedy, but the time has run out. This will be the third stage win of 2024 for the 96 car, checkered and green flag in the air. Austin Reedy, the stage 2 winner from the Brickyard.
And immediately on the clutch pedal for both of them, so I think they stretched it as far as it'll go.
Austin Reedy doing a wonderful job of holding on and staying in it with Lawson Peel. That was a wonderful fight to the end of stage 2. Not as much drama on pit road. We know everyone and their mom will be on pit road this time by. Curtis Kelly ending up with stage points. He barely gets through. Got dealt some left rear damage on his number 71. Seems as though he was in a contentious fight for the spot with Ray Rogers and company. Justin Winters barely right behind, and Curtis Kelly gets that final stage point. So Austin Reedy walks away with another stage win in his bag. We know that several weeks ago at Sonoma, he picked up both stage wins. Could not win the race, but still managed to finish inside the top 5. And what did we talk about, Bradley, before we went live? Austin Reedy is one of those that needs a win, even though he's the points leader.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting it done in stages, but that's not going to cut it when it comes to postseason. You have to get the race win to lock yourself into those brackets. And when we start eliminating drivers, if you go winless and some of these other guys have all locked themselves in, then it's coming down to points. And if you had a bad week, you're out. I mean, that's really all it boils down to, is there's a short stint of 16 and then 12, you know, and so on. So you have to start winning races. And I would like to see Reedy be able to do that in a regular season, prove to everybody that he is formidable, and it's not just a points lead, it's going to be the guy that could win the championship.
Well, the yellow is out here at lap 101. We've still got one long stage left to go from the Brickyard, but the man on top, Austin Reedy, will pick up the iRacing official pace car and let everyone come down pit road behind him. He will surely be in for the 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and some fuel. But talking about those who had pitted a little while ago, we know that Alex Huffman has fallen a lap down. He should be able, for the most part, to get his lap back. Curtis Kelly is pitted a little earlier on, so I think he may lose a lap as well. Aaron Adcock is in. Eddie Smith has dropped to 21st. Shane Wyatt, 22nd. Richard Swavely in 23rd. What's the saving grace for them this time by?
It's a weird call. I think right now they probably will stand to gain. I think they're going to stay out here because they came in and got their 4 fresh tires. So Eddie Smith's going to stay out for sure. Unfortunately, catching back up to the pace car, he had to run at race speed there for a minute to catch up, and so he'll have a little bit of wear on those tires, especially from the end of the second stage. I think they'll be okay, and you know, Eddie Smith proved that clean air, he can pull away from this field. You just think now it's a matter of where do you pit there in that 60 lap stint. I think you split it in half and take it to lap 30 would probably be the best call for these guys.
Well, these guys will stay out. Eddie Smith should take over the race lead for the next restart to kick us off for the final stage. As for the race off pit road, it's Lawson Peel with the upper hand, winning this one with a counter punch, although he lost the fight on the racetrack. Austin Reedy falls back, all of them 14 and 15 second stops. That seems to be the consensus. So 3 cars stay out, everyone else has come in. 2 stages down and the final one remaining from Indianapolis. It's been a fun one to watch. Stay with us here on VSPEED as we bring you the final stage for race 10 of the 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller,
Yeah,
needed F-150 for Smith build.
got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
What's up, Doug? What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Welcome back to coverage of the Sunoco Cup Series live on VSPEED from the virtual Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Bradley Cooper, Kenneth Bueno along with you. Bradley, what is there to say after 2 stages and about 103 laps with 57 left to go?
What's the right strategy? That's the only question we've had all day long is what do you do? Who made the right call? We could have another caution that shakes this race up all the way back to square one. So really for me, I'm just trying to think, what can I do to outsmart some of these other guys that have been up front all race long? You got Lawson Peel, Alex Muscarella, who led the first stint, got the stage win, and then Austin Reedy was able to hold on. So there's still a lot of left to be done, and this will be the longest stage of the day.
We had 2 opposite stages. The first one, we had a lot of strategy decisions, some of them having to save, some running out of fuel, some having to come down pit road. 5 or less laps to go until the stage 1 finish. Then stage 2, everyone seemed to be on the same page, perhaps unlike several other drivers, and we had a whale of a finish between Lawson Peel and Austin Reedy. What comes next? From Indianapolis, Eddie Smith, Shane Wyatt to the green flag in the final stage. Eddie Smith pulling away easily. Shane Wyatt under fire from Richard Swavely, and the fellow Chevrolet of Lawson Peel tries to puncture his way into this battle. He's on the outside. He's loose. Everyone's single file, and Eddie Smith away by half a second.
When you look back here, 3 wide with Brad Fulham stuck in the middle, the 22 down to the bottom. Justin Winters, they are still pushing the issue. I think the 19 backs out of it. They had the 6 of Dustin Reeves on the outside. Eddie Smith holding on to the lead. Looks like Shane Wyatt maybe a little off there on the exit of turn 3. He's holding up the 32 here, who got back on the lead lap and has found his way back into the top 3.
Great switch around for Swavely. Missed out on stage points, but the position is in his favor. He was one of the several guys, that includes Wyatt and Smith, who had to pit earlier in stage 2 and fell about a lap down. At least Swavely did, and he was right in the mix of the Lawson Peel, Austin Reedy battle, and here he is dealing with the 12 this time for right on lap position. He's loose out of turn 2. Both Peel and Reedy have to swerve out of the way to get out of the area, but Richard Swavely, dangerous look sideways out of the second corner.
They were running that IndyCar line down the backstretch. You saw Peel have to kind of make an evasive maneuver, and Austin Reedy also followed suit. They went all the way down to the grass, almost clipped it there as they went by the 32, who just kind of ran out of racetrack there on the outside.
Swavely, one of those who has been in trouble around turn 2. We've seen that be a really tough spot to master, specifically for the rear tires. Many a time we've seen drivers get sideways off of that corner, and that could spell disaster if there is a wrong move made at a specific time. KC9ing, Chris Progar, this is 415 on the racetrack. Haven't talked much about that Dr. Pepper Toyota Camry, but Knighton has done a nice job for race team tonight. Started back in 33rd. Here he is with a mid-pack position fighting against Ray Rogers.
He was almost 3 wide there just a second ago as they came down the front stretch. He looked to gain a position on Progar, but now maybe losing a spot here to Ray Rogers as he falls back to 17th. But yeah, we haven't mentioned Casey Knighton too much tonight. I don't think we really said his name yet. And so for the 28 car, solid day. You know, up 16 spots, and so, oh, we got trouble. The 14's
Huge
around.
crash. Austin Shoemaker, Alex
Oh.
Muscarella, they pick up Casey Knighton, and it is the largest stack up we've seen thus far from the Brickyard. The pole sitter, Alex Muscarella, on pit road, turned around and beat up
I think the 48 can repair this. I think he can come back, but this puts a big dent in what he had going on. And the 14 looks like he's done for the day. He's just trying to get back around without towing. That car is smashed. It has no suspension left.
It was a moving parking lot on the front straightaway, and it all began with Shoemaker and Muscarella. When we mentioned turn 2 is a danger spot, turn 4 is the same way, as these two were going side by side for position inside the top 15. The 48 gets loose, hangs on to it, but in turn carries the 14 to the outside wall. And as the 48 sails for the inside barrier, the 14 stays on track and gets the heavy beating. Casey Knighton, James Kunkel among those who pick up severe damage. Muscarella getting out of the way, but still slamming the inside wall hard, like Jesse Whittington did, or Colin Forster did, mind you, earlier in this race. The onboard look from the 48.
Very loose. That's what I saw coming out of turn 4. We can back that up one more time here, and you can see he's not trying to push or pinch the 14. He just gets loose with a little door check there, and he can't go anywhere. I mean, there's no track left, and he's trying to steer it towards the wall, but there's just no more room, and those guys got together a little early in that corner. That's unfortunate there for both those guys, and I think Muscarella can repair that car, but it's not going to be as fast as it was earlier in this race.
It definitely isn't. One of the cars that got stage points on both ends of the spectrum at lap 50 and at lap 100. Well, this race again has turned sour for Muscarella. It seems like he still cannot catch a break in his 2024 Sunoco Cup Series campaign. He was one of the Championship 4 drivers in 2021's edition of this series, also the All-Star Race winner. But Muscarella here in 2024 not having the best of times, as he will take his Chevrolet down pit road along with all the others who have been involved. Our biggest accident of the night, bringing out the most recent yellow here at lap 108. So there's the whole field behind the iRacing official pace car. Why don't we have a word with the man who sits atop the running order, Eddie Smith, driver of the number 87 for Poman Motorsports. First of all, welcome, Eddie. It's been quite a while, but this race has been a lot of fun for you. You've certainly missed out on some stage points not that long ago, but the strategy has been of utmost importance. What does that look like for you as the night has progressed?
Well, I mean, this is the cards on the table at the moment. This flipping the stage there when I made a blunder on fuel and just overall kind of mismanaging the first part of the race. So just trying to do the best I can to get a good finish. We'll see how it plays out. I'm not too sure how it's going to go.
So it's you, Shane Wyatt, and it was Richard Swavely, those who were on an alternate strategy. You guys had to pit several laps before stage 2 was over, and you guys were basically at the mercy of being a lap down. But now, as we see another early yellow at the beginning of a stage, how do you prep for the longest stage of the night, knowing that tires are going to come at a premium? Because we started with 5. A lot of guys have burned up their sets already. For you, what's that situation like, and what kind of communication do you have with your teammates on figuring out the best way to have the best set of tires towards the end?
Well, I was able to, doing this strategy, able to recoup one that I used early in the race, and so I've still got 2. So I've got 1 for to split this stage and 1 extra. So it's been able to gain the track position. Track position is just too important. So I feel feel pretty good. We'll see. I would love to settle somewhere in the top 10. If I could do that, that's a win. And I kind of want to just say to Logan Sturgeon, if you're watching or if he's watching this back, man, I'm so sorry. That was a mistake on my part. Just wanted to get that out there. Sorry, guys. But, yeah, I feel pretty good about this. I feel like we're fast. We'll see how we stack up on older tires and hopefully get a good finish.
All right, big restart here, lap 110. What do you think here with everyone behind you?
Just get going and just settle in, start laying down laps. I feel pretty good. So just trying to get out and get away, don't make any mistakes, try to get through 1 and 2 pretty cleanly, and then just start laying them down.
Well, the Tide machine is looking clean. I'm so sorry to have to make that pun. Maybe people will be tired of my jokes by the end of this one. But Eddie, we appreciate the time as always. Best of luck on the green flag restart.
Thanks, guys.
Eddie Smith in the 87 looking for Rookie of the Year honors. Going to be on the front row for this restart here. This time by Shane Wyatt, the fellow rookie on the outside. Boy, it's been a standout race for these two, showing out what they can do with the rest of the competition. Lawson Peel and Austin Reedy, those who went mono at the end of the second stage, well, they're occupying the second row. Richard Swavely has fallen back to 5th place. He's got Ross Harlow on his outside. Stephen Harlow back in 7th, Brandon Banks in 8th. Joe Sanchez and Zach Wilson file out the rest of the current top 10. There's a look at the whole field as they rise out of turn 4. The attrition is hitting 109 laps in. Eddie Smith to the Geico restart zone, bringing us back underway.
Already, Lawson Peel dives to the inside of the 27. He's looking to gain 1 spot here on the restart. Take it while you can. The 12 to the bottom. The 27 pitched up on the outside, but it's very difficult here on these restarts to complete a pass. You're kind of even. Still getting these things up to full song. Runs out of racetrack for the 27 of Shane Wyatt, and this might allow Lawson Peel on by.
We've harped on track position and how important that is, specifically off the restarts. Peel wanting to get this done here and now. He does it in turn 3. Shane Wyatt backs out. Austin Reedy finds himself in a side-by-side battle with Ross Harlow. Didn't want that to happen to him, but the 3-car down low, and Eddie Smith staying put in the race lead by about half a second over the 12. How long does it take until that whittles down?
You know, I don't know. Eddie's kind of proven that he can be up here. He did pull out quite a lead there in that last time in the second stage, but, you know, it wasn't Lawson Peel chasing him down. It was a couple of rookies. He had Huffman, he had the 33 of Harlow, so it's a little bit of a different situation now where you got a guy that's been up here racing for stage points at the end of stage 2. I don't know. Eddie said, I'm going to try to get gone. And what he means by that is get away as far as you can there in this restart, try to maintain that gap until these tires fall off, then start worrying about when do I pit. Did I save my stuff? Clean air is going to help that 87 tremendously.
For sure, but it's also a help of making sure second and third, they go side by side, right? How many times have we seen Eddie Smith pull away by almost a second just because those guys behind him have been going at each other's throats? For Lawson Peel, just because he dealt the pass early on Shane Wyatt, obviously still the potentiality for Wyatt to go back at Peel and make it a pass attempt for second, but as long as they stay single file, Eddie Smith is going to have to worry about what that driver does behind him. He will deal him dirty air. However, there may be a breaking point, especially for Smith, who is on about 10-lap older tires than most of those guys behind him, specifically Lawson Peel. 1 car way down the racetrack. Alex Huffman saving it off turn 2.
I saw that just out the corner of the exit of turn 2. I think he chased that thing the full width of the backstretch before he finally caught it.
Hang on to it, Alex Huffman. He does it. He got into the quarter panel of Curtis Kelly. Actually got the bumper as the 71 hit the outside wall.
We saw that a little bit
wonderful job by Huffman. Yeah.
We saw that a little bit earlier, I think, with the 71, and it's kind of been getting worse as this track is rubbered up, that those exits are sneaking up on guys, more likely to get into the wall, and caused a big accident there with the 14 just a moment ago, where your guy that won the first stage got involved. And, I mean, it's this racetrack, again, ever-changing, as we see some of these guys that are on a little bit older tires starting to suffer. Shane Wyatt falling back a little bit. He's staying in the draft, but he is starting to fall off on time. He doesn't have that exit that he had earlier.
Well, it seems like the back foot for Curtis Kelly continues to sway further backwards. We know that Curtis Kelly was the winner last time we raced out at Nashville Super Speedway, and he told us at the end of the race, quote, "This one means a lot. Last year it was nice to get into the playoffs easy with the Atlanta win. It was nice to go out there, though, this time on strategy and on raw pace. It feels really good, and it was a confirmation of talent, just a testament of how hard it is to win in this series." But for Curtis Kelly, who wanted to bank off of the win and go right at it with a decent finish tonight at Indianapolis, it's been a little harder to come by. Loose out of turn 1 in that short chute, staying right behind Chris Progar, and some of that left rear damage that he got dealt earlier in the race certainly hasn't helped. He started inside the top 10. He's only fallen back to 16th as it runs.
Yeah, and he can make that ground up. I think right now it's going to be a strategy game for him. With that damage, he probably can't pass as easy, but he can stand to gain a lot of positions on pit road. He just really needs to hope that this race stays green. And based off of what we're seeing, though, the way this track, again, is rubbered up and a lot of people getting clipped in the wall, the likelihood of that staying green is starting to dwindle down a little bit. These guys spread out. That'll help, but I think right now you're seeing, nose to tail, guys single file. Just a matter before somebody clips the wall, and we see what we saw with Progar there that got stuck. And a big accident could happen from that.
Could be possible, but you also bring up the question of, do we see a calmer strategy ploy this time around? We know that it is a longer stage for sure, but just because everyone has their bearings together, is it going to be much easier to make your strategy calls now that at least there has been some calmness for the most part?
I don't think so. I really still don't know. I mean, yeah, we're going to probably split this run, but does short pitting work here? Do you come down early and then, run some guys down? If a caution comes out, then it's all over. You're out of it. So, no, I don't think it makes anything easier. These guys are still trying to figure out what they're going to do here. And I think right now it's just focus on how much time can you make up right now. Get every lap in every position you can and set yourself up for a good spot to try to go win this race. If the leader comes down, see what he's doing. Did he shortcut too much? Adapt with that. Do you have enough time left that you could run him down? A lot of things change throughout this race, and again, a yellow comes out, it throws it all out the window, so you have to be careful. I don't think it's any easier this time.
Well, knowing the situation now as we approach lap 120, which will be about 40 laps to go in this race, as these guys run on now 14-lap old tires, and as they continue running around the speedway, they probably could be at the play to pit halfway through this stage, which we didn't see much of, if not at all, in stage 2. We saw everyone basically make it after pitting after the first early yellow, which involved the likes of Logan Sturgeon and them. But here at this point, with this longer stage, you may anticipate one halfway stop. And I could say, Bradley, that short pitting could work as a slap of the outside wall by Richard Swavely, gets him all out of shape, and Zach Wilson moves on by.
There's a little smile on his face here. I think he knows that could have been a lot worse. Maybe somebody talking to his ear right now, but Zach Wilson, he smirked a little bit. He knows this car is starting to adapt to this racetrack, but we've seen him struggle a little bit here in the later run, and I think right now he's just having fun.
Well, one who isn't struggling, Lawson Peel, who just gets by Eddie Smith and takes over the race lead from Indianapolis. Did a great job of moving under Eddie Smith in turns 3 and 4. And once again, the 12 car in command from the Brickyard.
Well, Eddie wasn't quite able to pull out the lead that he had before, and I think that's the draft helping the 12. Now Eddie needs to just hang with him, save his stuff, don't make a mistake. He has a good little cushion there. I kind of like how he's sitting back a little bit. I think he'll be okay. But as far as, Shane Wyatt and Joe Sanchez, these guys haven't really tried to push pace right now. So I'm interested to see what that 55, maybe the 96 of Reedy have to say later in this run.
Well, Smith definitely has more breathing room considering the action we've seen for third on back. Shane Wyatt, Joe Sanchez, well, they've gone at it several times. This will add to the list. Austin Reedy, who's been the bystander in all of this, may attack when he needs to. Here comes Sanchez down low. This will be for third, making it 2 of the top 3 DBR Chevrolets. Completed pass in turn 1. Austin Reedy's there. Wyatt shutting the door there in turn 1.
Remember, Shane Wyatt, he has a little bit older tires than the rest of this top 10. He's actually 26 laps on this stint. So he's with Eddie Smith and I believe it was Richard Swavely who got back on the lead lap there just at the end of stage 2. So these guys, they're in a little bit different stint and strategy, but I think it's all going to kind of even out depending on where they pit. If they can stretch it out to the halfway point, I think they're going to be all right. But yeah, Shane Wyatt is doing an excellent job on defense for having 10 lap older tires and, you know, probably 8 of those up at speed. He's doing a phenomenal job staying up here in the top 5.
Well, I wouldn't call myself a strategist, Bradley Cooper, at all, as here's Ross Harlow down low on Austin Reedy. That will be for position number 5. I wouldn't call myself a mathematician. I'd say that I am pretty terrible at math. That's why I'm a journalism major. But for these guys who are now 28 laps into their stint, Eddie Smith, Shane Wyatt, and like you said, Richard Swavely, for them, they have to pit, of course, earlier than everyone else does. That is the obvious statement. But for the little hidden nugget, if they do pit a little earlier, what does it mean for the rest of the stage if we stay green? Do they have to pit a second time? And then if they do have to pit another time, do they have the tire sets available to get fresh rubber off the pit stop?
Oh, based off the numbers we saw there in that stage 2, they can make it 40 laps. So that'll put them right there at the window of lap 130. At that point, it's 30 laps left in the race, and they've already shown that they can do that. I think they're okay, but they have to make it to the halfway, and they will pit a little bit shorter, but I think you'll see a whole flood of cars. Like I said, I think once one of them pits, the rest of these guys are going to see that tire loss, because we're seeing almost a 2-second fall off here by the end of the run. They're going to have to come down pit road so they don't lose ground.
And again, it is going to be 39 laps that we'll look at for Wyatt, for Smith, and for Swavely. That's around the marker to where they came down pit road in stage 2. So it was a possible similar strategy they're running here, where they could fall about a lap down, but it may give them a little bit of an upper hand, considering everyone else also does have to pit, other than in stage 2, to where Austin Reedy, Lawson Field, they could stay out and afford getting the stage win or fighting as hard as they could for it. Here's Stephen Harlow, the onboard look, breezing by Austin Reedy. That's courtesy of some help from car number 51, Zach Wilson, giving him the push entering turn 1. How much some help can do at a track like Indianapolis where the straightaways are so long. But for Stephen Harlow, it's been a season possibly to forget in the first half, but one to remember in the second. We mentioned just how fast he's been over the last several outings, including the 5th place run at Nashville. Now he's going at it with one of the best drivers in the series. Reedy back down low. This is going to be for 6th.
Stage 2 winner, your points leader, battling on the inside, rookie of the year, trying to get it here for the 33. And yeah, like I said, kind of a weird start to the beginning, but as of late, you know, you saw what he did at Nashville. You saw what he's done at a few tracks where he has the speed, and he's a top 10 contender every single week, putting another good one together here for Stephen Harlow. And get back Zach Wilson, who we said maybe, you know, some bad luck, maybe got a little relaxed there after that win at Texas. He had some problems. He's still having problems. He's tagged the wall. Here he is loose in turn 2. But he's maintained a top 10 as well. Hopefully he can bring it home, because this car is starting to shave that right side, getting a little bit lighter every lap.
Well, we know almost everyone around Zach Wilson has been running this race off the right front tire. Wilson has been the only one we've seen run this race off the right rear. Every corner we've seen him sideways, and that could hamper your performance. It could get you out of the outside wall because the back end steps out in front of the, or instead of the front end of the race car. But Wilson has had his fair share of both this evening, hitting the wall several times. And that number 51 still holding on to 8th place as Richard Swavely hunts behind. Ray Rogers, Justin Winters, Brandon Banks, Chris Shoemaker, a loaded and stacked field of drivers behind this 51. A lot of defense he needs to play as he's falling back from Stephen Harlow, and that gap only continues to balloon.
Some battling back here just inside the top 20. Dustin Reeves, I believe, just got around Charles Stevens, but that's Alex Muscarello with the heavy damage that he got earlier, and we got a yellow out of the
back
field.
Straight away. It is Ray Rogers in the 23. We mentioned him in that battle, fighting behind the 51 of Zach Wilson. Rogers in trouble as he tangos with the 22 of Justin Winters. Yellow is out once again for a back straightaway spin as Rogers picks it up. The Florida native in trouble. Yellow out, lap 124.
That's the aftermath, and he takes a hard lick to the inside wall there. I'll have to back this up just a little bit further to see exactly. I think there was contact in this battle. He had a lot of help coming off of turn 2, but did he make a mistake and wash up and bounce the wall? No, he did not. I think this is just a matter of he didn't know he wasn't clear. The 22 came up.
Rogers had the momentum, but Winters, like I said, yeah, didn't know that the 23 was still up there. Onboard look from the 22 car. See Rogers up high, business as usual until here wants to side draft him and pull him back, but they make the contact as Rogers slides down ever so slightly. That sends the 23 for a spin or two, ending up nose first into the inside wall. Yellow is out once again. Justin Winters, the cause of the accident, as everyone picks up the iRacing official pace car, and this may alleviate some of that pressure to enter pit road for likes of Eddie Smith, Shane Wyatt, and Richard Swavely. They could find themselves on pit road with everyone else instead of having to figure out what to do alternatively under green. We'll figure it out. Turn 4. Here we go.
This is interesting, Kenneth. I mean, if you're outside the top 10, you can come down pit road now. I think some of these guys are just going to commit. I think everyone's going to be on the same tires here right now. This is putting us at 35 laps, and everyone can make it to the end of this race. I don't think you want to be the guy that stays out here. So, yeah, 4 tires of fuel for every single one of these cars. You got to top off with that Sunoco, fill it up. Let's go all the way to the end of this thing. Every strategy that we talked about, Kenneth, means nothing now.
Well, here we go. Round 3. Everyone on pit road. Eddie Smith barely overshooting the pit box. He has to back up for a split second. Jacks are up on the right and left sides of the car. Lawson Peel is going to head out early. That's a 14.6 second stop. Does he have enough to beat everyone else? Well, they'll try and beat him there. Smith behind. Austin Reedy and others looking to exit first. But no problemo for Lawson Peel. Look at the battle for second. Wyatt, Sanchez, and Reedy going at it off of pit road.
Eddie Smith, with just that little miss in the box, lost 3 positions out of that. He falls back to the 5th spot now. Shane Wyatt gains 2 or 3 spots here. He gets back up to 2nd. And again, this is the good situation for some of these guys that were a little bit behind the 8 ball. They're all on even stuff now, and we haven't really seen that for Shane Wyatt. We haven't really seen that for, Sanchez and Eddie Smith. So I'm really interested to see what they can do now that they're on the same tires.
And one obvious statement to bring up, Bradley, is that with this yellow and with this pit stop, given the fact that a lot of these guys can clutch and coast behind the pace car, means no more needed pit stops. If we don't get a yellow flag, these guys can make it on fuel. The run will be a little under 35 laps, so they will be able to stretch it all the way to the checkered flag. And the tires, we see them go a little longer than 40. So for the most part, everyone is good to the end. That is, of course, if a yellow does not fly. One thing we haven't seen over the night, Bradley, is desperation. We've only seen it maybe in tiny spurts, but never at large. That could change here in this final run.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the mixed side of having the same tires as everyone else. You don't have that advantage, and now you might get put into a situation where guys are frustrated that they can't pass. Maybe a dive bomb or two. I don't know. I think with 30 to go when we go back green, it's going to get a little bit more racy compared to what we saw in the first 2 stages of this race. So you got to keep that in your mind. Maybe don't give a guy as much room as you did at the start of this race. There's going to be a lot more take here in these last 30.
And for the table, lots of these guys looking for their first win. Lawson Peel, of course, searching for win number 3 in the 2024 calendar. Shane Wyatt, though, yearning for his first Sunoco Cup Series W. Joe Sanchez looking for his 2nd of the year. Austin Reedy, it would be his first. Eddie Smith, his first of the year. Ross Harlow, also his first of 2024. And the list continues. Zach Wilson, we know, has won already this season. But Richard Swavely, former winner here at Indianapolis, hasn't gone to victory lane in a while. He would love a W tonight. Justin Winters searching for a win. And then Brandon Banks looking to make it 2 consecutive seasons of race wins after picking up the W at Dover last year. And that's what's left of the field. We've had a ton of drivers taken out. only 27 cars on the racetrack as it goes. Everyone from 28th to 34th. Well, they have called it a night. It's been a rough one strategy-wise. Several big accidents taking multiple contenders out of it. But here we go. Lawson Peel and Shane Wyatt, the front row, exiting turn 4. We will take the green flag with a little under 32 laps left to go from the racing capital of the world. We know they can make it on fuel and tires, but is this the run of a lifetime for many searching for their first? Pace car turns to the left, makes the entrance to pit road. Could we see this last run go green? It's up to Lawson Peel and Shane Wyatt to make that decision for us entering turn 1. Lawson Peel underway, back under green from Indy.
Peel off to a good start. These guys really pushing the envelope there on the exit of turn 1. We got a spinner back there. I believe that was Garrett Brown. Are they going to stay green? 33 of Ross, or that is, I apologize, Harlow, though. Stephen Harlow. They stay green, Kenneth.
It was him and Garrett Brown that got collected together in the short chute at the exit of turn 1, but that's under the racing line. No yellow flag. We are staying green. A tough one for the rookie in the 33 as they go door to door for 4th place. Austin Reedy and Eddie Smith going at it in turn 4.
I think Smith just got the wall there on the exit of turn 4 after that. We were going to go back on the replay, but I think Smith just got some damage from that.
Smith had to hold on to it. There's a look at the replay off 4. This is the slide job of the ages here at Indy, going way in front of the 87, tagging the wall. Ross Harlow gets checked up. Zach Wilson moving underneath. He actually gets by Harlow for 6th place as Ross tags the outside wall again. Here he is door to door with the 51, and now in the middle of the Hornet's nest, Richard Swavely on the inside looking for position as Lawson Peel pulled away, and it was paramount that he had the help from Joe Sanchez as there's the replay between Brown and Harlow that almost brought out the yellow flag.
We've got a lot to catch up on here, Kenneth, but they single file out here in the top 10. We're back to what we saw in the first stages of this race. Maybe a battle here for 2nd position, or for the lead rather, as the 55 peeked to the inside. Lawson Peel trying to pull this freight train all the way around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Guys running out of racetrack. Austin Reedy to the outside of the 27. Shane Wyatt maybe a little loose there on the exit. And here comes Reedy to try to take away 3rd.
What a power move by Austin Reedy. Used the higher lane to get the best of the 27 car. Here comes Smith. Back for the running on the outside. They swap over with Wyatt. They make it 3 and 4 on position. And Reedy and Smith, their next challenge, the 2 Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets. And one thing that we talked about often are teammates and how they can help or maybe hurt the effort at running for the race lead. For Sanchez, who holds into 2nd, we don't know if he'll take position over Lawson Peel. But one thing we do know, Bradley, is that they work together. They are in the same voice chat. Everyone 3rd on back. A much harder time that they'll have trying to search for P1.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall order here to catch up. These two are going to work together. I don't think the 55 is going to try anything on the 12 right now. But how about that power move? Back to what you were saying with Austin Reedy on the outside of Shane Wyatt. We haven't seen that at all today. And that proves right there that this racetrack has changed tremendously from what we started with. Nobody was passing on the outside. Everyone that got hung up there on the outside ended up hitting the exit wall. But it looks like the bottom of this track has slowed up considerably. And the inside line isn't as fast as it was earlier. Oh, contact with Swavely.
Swavely up the racetrack. He holds on to it. Wonderful save by Swavely.
He's still trying to save it out of 4. He does hang on to it, but now cars fan out. He might lose 2 or 3 more spots here.
Hemorrhaging track position down the front straightaway. There's Winters, Huffman. Next up, Progar. That one mistake, the bit of contact, sending him up the racing line. And that's all she wrote. Richard Swavely still holding on to what he can. And he'll make the contact with Chris Progar once and twice. He slides up again. Holds on to the Chevrolet. Slaps the outside wall twice. Oh, and that may be the run over for Swavely. Is that suspension damage?
It looks like it. We go on board with him. Maybe he's okay. Wheel looks pretty straight, Kenneth. I think he's going to be all right, but not okay on the positions lost. He went from the top 5 back to 21st. Top 10 rather.
That's how quickly it happens here at Indianapolis for Swavely. The tough break sends him at the very back of the field. He's going to need a yellow if he wants to get himself back into this race. There's a look from Joe Sanchez. Austin Reedy slowly creeping up, and I guess that's one reason why we saw Reedy power out from the outside lane so much on Shane White, is that he's pushing this run. He knows what he's got. He wants to clean air as quickly as possible. He got the best of White in turn 2. This time by, he's got the draft on Sanchez and Peel. Does he peek out and make a move?
I don't think just yet. He might need some help. He's going to try it here in the 3. He's going to try to break this tandem of cars up. I thought maybe he would wait for Eddie Smith to catch up, but, you know, we're under 30 to go. They might be... You can't wait for it, so if the tires are fresh, take it while you got it. This does benefit some of these guys that are outside the top 5. They could catch back up if they stay side by side here for a few laps.
Yeah, this is wonderful news for Eddie Smith and Zach Wilson. They would love to see Austin Reedy go side by side with Joe Sanchez. That only gives them more incentive to catch back up and make this a close fight. We know that the 5 cars now wrapped by at least half a second, so they're pretty much all under a blanket now. But for Reedy, again, another trial to get around Joe Sanchez and therefore get around his teammate in Lawson Peel. It is not going to be easy, specifically on the inside lane, as, like you said, Bradley, great point that you touched on. It has slickened up considerably, but it's easy work in turn 3. Now a look at the race leader in 4, Austin Reedy, down low for the top spot.
He made quick work of that. He got past Joe Sanchez. No sooner did I take the camera off of him, and he's battling for the lead down the front stretch. Doesn't look like that inside work, though, there out of the exit of 4. He's going to lose 2-3 spots here. Eddie Smith on the outside.
Eddie Smith up top. He doesn't offer the assistance that Reedy needs to push forward. And again, the reset button is hit for the Teamer Designs number 96 of Austin Reedy, who at this moment is the only Fast Banana car inside the top 10. Curtis Kelly, the next one, back in 11th. We know that Colin Forrester has found a ton of bad luck tonight, and he is out of this race. Reedy, the last remaining driver of Fast Banana Racing, looking for the team standings points lead, as there's Kip Easley underneath Chris Progar. That's for 14th. Oh, and a slide by Easley. He saves it.
Little sideways there through the exit of turn 3. A little bit of right front damage on that 8 car. Washes up into the door of the 7 of Progar. A little more contact off the exit. Another thing that I just noticed. How impressive is it right here? I know it's not the race that he wanted, but the 12th place driver, Alex Muscarella, he's on the verge of getting back into this top 10. He might get a top 10 to seal this day. And I mean, as much as has happened to him, he's had an up and down night. It would be great to see him back up here in the 10th.
Talk about keeping your heart in the fight. Alex Muscarella, despite the nose first contact into the inside wall off of turn 4, you'd imagine that's a race ender for sure. He had the bumper torn off of the Camaro and everything, but he spent the time, the due diligence down pit road. He spent a minute and a half down there, still somehow didn't lose more than a lap, and is back in this deal with a solid top 15 finish on the docket if he can hold on to it. Look at this battle for 3rd place. Austin Reedy doesn't need to deal with Sanchez anymore. He's got Eddie Smith right on his coattail. The 51 of Wilson there as well. The fight for 3rd, back to turn 1.
Smith getting a little bit of a draft help there from the 51, but he gets loose there in the entry of 1. Now he has Zach Wilson to the outside there peeking. They're going to try to get reconnected. This track has rubbered up so bad, it is almost impossible to get around somebody.
Well, it turned from 5 cars to 6, maybe even 7. Ross Harlow has picked up these groups, and Brandon Banks is there as well. Harlow ducks down low. He goes underneath Zach Wilson. Completed pass inside the top 5, and all of a sudden, Ross Harlow is coming back to life with his Chevrolet Camaro, pushing forward on the 87 of Eddie Smith. But again, we're talking about breaking the mold, getting underneath Joe Sanchez and completing that pass. It has been almost impossible over this run, but you have to imagine, Bradley, we still have a little over 20 laps to go in this race. Still a formidable run to wear off the Goodyear Eagles. How much do you have to push now, as here comes Reedy again for 2nd place?
Well, you can kind of force that human error, that human element that we kind of sometimes forget about, especially when you see these guys like Lawson Peel and Joe Sanchez, where they do superhuman, almost mistake-free races every week. But they can make a mistake, and with what Reedy's doing right now, racing him to the inside, he can make the 55, use his stuff up, trying to hold him down there. And I think lap after lap, you're starting to see Sanchez fade out a little bit here. Reedy made a mistake there, tagged the apron. He's loose coming out of 4. But that's what you have to do. You have to keep these guys guessing. When are you going to try to pass? And are they going to use up their stuff? Now Reedy, he makes a mistake that loses him 4 or 5 spots in contact with Wilson into 1.
Well, this is a domino effect. He bangs doors again with Zach Wilson, who's loose at the short chute, holding on to it and making way for some clean air with Brandon Banks and Shane Wyatt having to back out of the lane just to make sure they don't get into Wilson. Look on board with the 51. That's the camera on the bottom right of your screen. Watch this in 3 and 4 and how much he has to fight the steering wheel.
He's been leaning on that right rear all day long. He's going to come out sideways here. Not too bad that time, but turn 4, it's worse than 3. And he was really fighting it there when he got that contact from Reedy. But look at this thing. It is out of control. Everyone's suffering.
Well, he is spending basically the entire corner sideways. That's one way to ride off the right rear tire. Oh, for the 51, that's got to be very stressful with a car that's known to oversteer and overcorrect into the outside wall as easy as a lot of cars on the service. Zach Wilson is keeping his foot in it. He remains in P6 as things go down. 20 laps to go from Indianapolis. Still no one able to break the top 2. One car going way down low. Alex Muscarella escaping danger there off turn 2.
Did he get loose? I think he just got loose on his own and maybe hit the wall. Yep, he didn't hit the wall, but he did chase it. That was another oh no moment for the 48 team. He's almost back to the top 10, so he's got to hold on to it for 20 more laps.
And that will be a tall task as long as we stay green. We know that inside lane has slickened up considerably. Again, it is only going to get more difficult as we push forward. You watch this top 5 right now, and you see Eddie Smith, who's running in 4th. Well, if you take him out of the equation, you've got the top 4 from our last trip to Indianapolis. Lawson Peel won that race. Joe Sanchez finished right behind him. Ross Harlow ended up in 3rd. Austin Reedy finished in 4th. So the same host of drivers were successful back in 2022 on July 31st, the last time we visited this very speedway on an older iRacing scan that came the way of 2009. The same guys are back in it this time around.
Oh boy, Reedy is pushing every inch of this racetrack, everything that car is worth coming out of turn 4. I thought for sure he was going to hit that exit wall, and he did have to get out of the throttle. You can see Zach Wilson was able to get to the outside briefly there. These guys, I mean, this is the final chase right here. This is what you have to do, and you shouldn't have any tires left on this thing when we hit the white flag. I mean, you got to use it up for all it's worth here to hang with these leaders. Lawson Peel out in that fresh, clean air. He hasn't had a single problem with handling. He doesn't even know what it feels like right now to have an ill-handling race car, I don't think.
Well, you mentioned, Bradley, you make a good point of just getting it all out there for this last stint, but once and for all, you never know if a yellow's going to come out 1, but even then 2, if you push a little too hard early in the run, that's all that you've wasted, and then you're only just playing survival mode until the end of the race if you don't get that yellow to bail you out of jail and get you an opportunity at fresh tires, even if you have sets available. So it's sort of a balancing game, right? You got to think of it as maybe I can push my tires here in this specific moment, but maybe not all the time. Maybe I don't want to do it too much in the beginning, or else if this race stays green, I'm cooked. I'm going to be back in the top 10 with nowhere else to go but backwards. So you've got to be really careful about what you do, and that's why you look at drivers like Shane Wyatt, one who fell back early in that run, but is slowly starting to pick things up, knowing what happened to Zach Wilson, how sideways he's been with Austin Reedy, how much he's pushed to get under Joe Sanchez, and here now under Eddie Smith. Several guys in this group of at least 7 or 8 cars have the tires to push forward. They just haven't used them all that much yet.
And Wilson's kind of that first name that comes to mind of how hard has he pushed it. That car leaning on the right rear. He's one of the few guys that was getting loose before this track rubbered up. So I am interested to see if Shane Wyatt can get around him. And like I said, when we got all these cars in the top 10 back on even tires, now you're starting to see these guys that had track position earlier suffer because they don't have that 7 or 8 lap tire advantage. And there's a 51 really loose out of turn 2. That will allow the 27 Wyatt to the inside for the 6th spot.
And even then, side by side up the road, Eddie Smith, Austin Reedy, they're going door to door. Austin Reedy sent it in turn 3. Eddie Smith wants to return the favor this lap by, although unsuccessful in his efforts, he's going to remain down there, and that may be the death sentence here with about 16 laps to go. Smith has to hold up. He gets out of the way, and he falls back to 5th and losing the time off of turn 4. Ross Harlow and company have pulled away 1st through 3rd place.
It's a pretty big gap to all 3 of those cars. We're talking about half a second between each of them. Harlow, he's got speed here, but he's not faster than the leaders. He's faster than the guys behind him, but he's not beating the times of Joe Sanchez and Los Appeal, the 52-2. Nobody on the racetrack did that last time by, so that's impressive. And again, goes this a shout out to the clean air and what it can do to these cars.
It's also a matter of tire saving. A lot of that has been assisted by Joe Sanchez playing a bulk of the defense. We talk about how teammates matter so much in a series like this as Wyatt wiggles sideways in the short chute between 3 and 4. Has to back out right behind Zach Wilson and try this one again here this lap through at lap 146. But for Peel, just a balance of saving his stuff and having that extra cushion of a teammate right behind him. He has pulled away quite a bit. Half a second separates Peel and his teammate Sanchez as we eye in on the final 14 laps of this one from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Sanchez washes up high, losing more time, and the onboard look further back. How about Alex Muscarella keeping his heart in it again? He's in 11th, looking for 10th.
Yeah, and he stands to gain probably 3 or 4 more spots from this as they go side by side in front of him. He absolutely is going to get back into this top 10. As long as he can keep it under him here, he stands to gain a couple more spots and get a good solid top 10 day.
And that will be a win anyway for the driver of the 48 based on how rough and rugged his season has been up until now. We talked about his ability to run well at a ton of tracks, but the problem hasn't been his pace. The problem has been a lot of the bad luck that has stricken him, and that includes tonight. Even if he is able to recover the way that he has, we can only hope that he can escape this race with at least the top 10 and make it at least 5 races in a row where he's finished inside the top 15. That would certainly be a win for Muscarella, who, like we said earlier in the show, searching for top 16 territory in points. We know that a ton of drivers have already won this season, 8 in fact, but for those who can't get to victory lane, points racing is all they can rely on, and getting stage points as well. So Muscarella getting a stage win and then finishing in 6th in stage 2. If he can wrap this one up with at least a top 15 or even better, a top 10 and counting, that could help him get into playoff territory before this regular season ends. Battle for P6. Zach Wilson, Shane Wyatt at it, several drivers. Back there, Chris Progar, Kip Easley, all single file, but here's the action in the spotlight. Wilson way sideways, makes the contact.
That's where that right rear started stepping out on him. It's right there on that exit, and if he has someone to his inside, it's a little more difficult to catch that car. You run out of racetrack, and it looked like the 27 of Wyatt knew that, used it to his advantage, and that could have been bad for the 27 as well, because had Wilson not used all of his talent right there, he could have very easily hooked him.
Well, that's one thing we've seen often tonight.
He's still
as he
fighting
gets
back
into
there.
Brandon Banks. Boy, it's dangerous to be in Zach Wilson territory. He is basically saving that race car with all that he's got. A bit of a better exit, but a lot of it is what you're seeing here. You see his right hand, how it goes down. That's the sequential shifter that he's touching entering the corner. He may be fluctuating with some brake bias, trying to change the setup, but he is immediately downshifting into 4th. And that may be the cause of why he's so loose tonight, Bradley. He's in the high rev range, just lighting up the rear tires on corner exit.
I keep seeing a smirk out of him, though, every time this car starts fighting him. He knows that this thing's a handful, and he's having fun driving it, but I think the frustrating part, right, is that he's losing spots while he's on the outside. And again, great save there, but He's lost, what, 3-4 spots since we went back green. He's falling back. He's 2 down from where he began the race. He's in survival mode. He's one of those guys you mentioned earlier that's now they pushed it too hard. They have to survive the day. They can't go on offense. They have to try to maintain where they are.
Well, hey, look, I'm a bit of a masochist myself. I like to have a car be sideways, even if I'm on the edge of wrecking the race car. But then there's the moment where you wreck the race car, and then it becomes a little less fun. So
yeah.
Wilson is having a good time wrestling the race car now, but the last thing he wants is a caution, and he almost caused it there. He overcorrected into the outside wall in the short chute, and here comes Zach Wilson backwards, Alex Huffman forwards, Chris Shoemaker in the rearview mirror.
I can't get enough of that camera. Every time he about snaps it free from ear to ear, he smiles, and yeah, he's having fun. But again, like you said, if you crash the thing, I think the smile goes away. So outside looking in, here's Muscarella. That's probably going to be the next car to go by, and this 51 is spent.
Oh man,
there it
is. He is all over the place. He is hitting pit road. He smacks it into the inside wall. Oh, that's it. Smile on his face, though. He was having a good time, but he has put it onto pit road with significant damage. His night is over from Indianapolis. You gotta definitely admire the spirit of Zach Wilson, though, still having fun, even in the races where he can't even control the race car, and he's loose every single corner. He takes it down pit road. That'll be another poor finish for the 51, but he had a good time anyway. Zach Wilson out of the race with 9 laps to go.
Right on board with Brandon Banks. He is the second largest gainer of this race so far, and we kind of stopped talking about him there for a moment, but remember, he pulled some of that strategy that these guys did at the first stage of this race and got his way up into the top 5. He was racing for the lead at one point. Now 16 spots gained, currently in 7. He's going to have a solid day with 8 laps to go.
Looking for his 6th top 10 effort in this 2024 Sunoco Cup Series season. He's had 5 up until now. His most recent was a 4th place outing in the longest race of the year at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And one thing that you always can connect with Brandon Banks is consistency. He's one of those guys who is usually quiet, not a standout guy, not one that has a polarizing personality, but a nice guy with a very, very strong race ethic. He knows how to race others clean. He knows how to be fast when needed. And that's often why you see him in championship contention year after year in most leagues. And that could include the Sunoco Cup Series, is just because he has that knack of being there at the right time when the race comes to a close, and either being in contention to win or being in a spot where he can just log off a good finish, pick it up and go to the next race and have some good points to his tally. Brandon Banks cooking up another top 10 here from Indianapolis. Onboard look from Muscarella, who has broken into the top 10, but this spot, P8, might be up for grabs pretty soon. Chris Shoemaker having to hold up the defensive wall over Alex Huffman.
He had just got by Alex Huffman there a lap ago, but then started to fall off a little bit. And Muscarella now going to go to work on the 10 car. He's not going to settle for just the top 10. He wants a couple more here. Capitalize on the fact that he was one of the fastest cars on this racetrack in the first 50 laps of this race. Unfortunate that, what happened to him, but again, he's got some handling issues that we were seeing earlier with the 51, and it's starting to come in. I think he's going to be okay, but does he push the issue and try to pass Alex Huffman?
Well, speaking of fastest cars on the racetrack, somebody was asking that in the YouTube chat. The answer, Austin Reedy, back in 3rd place, clocked into 52.790, as he has gotten into a bit of a bubble between himself, Joe Sanchez, and then all the way back there, Ross Harlow, who seems to be about a 2nd and 2/10 back there on the road. So Austin Reedy with the fastest lap out of anyone so far into the top 10. Some of the others to note: Eddie Smith, who has picked up a spot looking underneath Ross Harlow for the 4th place position, and Shane Wyatt right behind them in P6. Watch this, door-to-door contact. It is not getting easy for this final top 5 spot, or at least the final 2 of them with 6 to go. Ross Harlow catches the outside wall and almost gets into Smith.
I think they did touch. Smith almost hit the inside pit wall, and they're still side by side down the front stretch. This has allowed Shane Wyatt to catch up. Harlow pinches down into the entry of 1. Smith almost gets into him again here. You're going to wear that patience thin. It's already a thin line here, and you're going to erase it away as Smith sideways gets into the 3. Now he's sideways down the backstretch, chasing it. Good save, but he loses spots.
Yes! Eddie Smith, wonderful save, and we stay green. Oh my goodness, Bradley, that could have been terrible. But Smith holds on to it. Watch this.
I mean, he just sent it in there, but again, it steps out, washes up, he gets loose, doesn't touch the 3. I don't think he hit anything.
And that is the best place possible to be loose and chasing it under the apron. Is the one part of this racetrack where there is no grass. And for Smith, he got pretty lucky there, but that's a lot of skill to hold on to the race car. Smith remains in top 10 territory, although he does fall to 7th. Brandon Banks now, his turn to get loose off the second corner. Shane Wyatt up top with the crossover.
You were mentioning lucky, and I saw Brandon Banks make a pass on Shane Wyatt there. He was really lucky. Wyatt had to check up there, and Banks took full advantage of it down the backstretch, but he's not able to hold on to that top 5, so he goes back to 6. Eddie Smith just trying to nurse this car back, but you saw the contact there for 4th position. I think Harlow is about to have more company here with 5 to go.
He's got Shane Wyatt and Banks behind him, so for sure this race is not over. The rookie wants more than just 5th at the end of this one with about 4 laps to go from the Brickyard. He hugs the rumble strip in turn 1, and he is way sideways in the short chute, so that'll take him a little longer just to catch up to the fellow Chevrolet as Austin Reedy breaks free for 2nd. Joe Sanchez falling back, and the gap sits at 1 second. We were talking about how Austin Reedy was the fastest car on the racetrack several laps ago. He may have some time to catch up to the race leader and make this a one-on-one fight, but it'll be 3 laps remaining next time by.
Looking to get the first win of the season, and I can't believe we're saying that when he's leading the points coming into, what, the 11th race of this year, and he's still maintaining that points lead. Wouldn't it just solidify and prove to everyone that you deserve to have that lead if you could just get a win here? 7/10 now with 3 laps left. He is faster than Lawson Peel.
It definitely does. And I remember speaking with Reedy after he won the All-Star race last season at North Wilkesboro, and one thing he told me was that it doesn't really help me for the next race, all because it was an exhibition race. It did not matter for the championship. It had no effect on the point standings. If Austin Reedy can win this race and close in this gap in the next 2.5 laps, well, he definitely has a lot of momentum on his hands. And what better way to do it than by beating one of the best drivers in the series late in the regular season when you can punch that golden ticket with all of the points you've accumulated through the season. Again, we're talking hypotheticals because we've got 2 laps to go and the gap sits at 0.8 of a second, and it has stagnated. Lawson Peel has remained up front. He's got a lap car up the road, and that is the 17 of Aaron Adcock, but the gap closes in again. 0.6 of a second, final 5 miles.
I mean, it dwindles away a little bit, but I think that lap car, Aaron Adcock, might be helping the 12 get some draft down the backstretch, but this time, looks like Adcock dives to the bottom of the racetrack. Not going to interfere at all here with this run. Does he get up in front of Reedy? I don't know. Is he going to go high? He will.
Adcock stays out of the way. He wants to watch this battle for the lead build up. It stays at 0.6 of a second, but it is closing ever so slightly. However, the time may be expiring for the 96 of Austin Reedy. White flag in the air from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Lawson Peel with one more trip around this cathedral of speed for what would be his 3rd win of the season.
Position battle, that lead battle right now. 0.6, and it's not going down fast enough. He needs 0.3 this lap to get to the back bumper and have a shot out of turn 4, and I don't think he's going to get it. Looks like Lawson Peel is going to get his 3rd victory of the season, stringing together top 5s and victories for the end of the regular season here at Indianapolis.
Well, this is one thing that is common with Lawson Peel. He always knows how to get to the front. He knows how to win when it matters most. And off the final corner, Austin Reedy is too far behind. This is a long celebration to the yard of bricks as Lawson Peel makes it a trifecta winner for the third time in 2024.
He held on to it. I mean, he did exactly what he needed to do. We saw glimpses of him throughout the race, you know, starting deep in the field. 29 positions gained and 54 laps led, all of which pretty much in that last stage. And he just stayed in the clean air from the beginning of stage 3 all the way to the end.
And Lawson, after going into this race with an average finish of second over the last 3 races, well, that'll only be a better number after tonight as Lawson gets his 3rd win of the season and breaks what could have been our 2nd streak of different winners in Season 7. There are his teammates, Joe Sanchez and Brandon Banks, to send him the warm congratulations. Drinking Bros Racing will once again stay atop the team standings board. And Lawson Peel, for the 20th time in his Sunoco Cup Series career, will bring you tonight's Sunoco winning moment. More high-performance racing engines rely on Sunoco race fuels than all others combined. And for over 50 years, Sunoco has been the prime supplier of race fuels for race cars all across the globe. Sunoco, fueling victories from track to tank.
Well, he gets to kiss the bricks here, Kenneth, and you know that that's an honor all its own when you can do that. It was back in 1994, I believe, when Jeff Gordon got to do that for the first time in stock car racing. And now, here's Lawson Peel with the first time back here in over a year. Locks it up, takes the lead there in the last stage, and he's victorious here today.
It is the 3rd race win of the year for Lawson Peel as he parks his Chevrolet on the yard of bricks. It's a tradition to do the burnout not on the bricks but on the asphalt alongside it. Lawson stays true to the tradition. He will kiss the virtual bricks for the 2nd time in his career. And since Season 5, he's won the last 2 here at the Brickyard. We'll take a short break and be right back with the post-race coverage from Speedway, Indiana. It was a fun one, over 160 laps. We will discuss everything and more heading into the next race of the season. Stay with us here on VSPEED.
What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Fuller, yeah. Needed F-150 for Smith build.
Got it.
Yesterday.
I know.
Don't forget my BMW.
Gotcha. Check this out. All the major online automotive sites in one place. BMW, done. F-150, done.
How's he do it?
I can search nationwide, even those classified sites. Auto Tempest, all the cars, one search. That's how I do it.
What's up, Doug? What got into you?
At Sunoco, we know how to fuel peak performance. Fuel your best.
Welcome back to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where it's a 3-0 for Lawson Peel. He gets his 3rd win of the 2024 season. Here are the unofficial race results after 160 laps from Speedway, Indiana, and 6 cautions. Lawson Peel, the race winner, after starting in 30th. He didn't even put in a qualifying time, and he somehow ends up winning this race. Austin Reedy closing in on the last laps. You could make the argument that Reedy could have won this race had he had at least 5 or 10 extra laps in the tank, but he still finishes in second. Way to go for the 96. The 55 of Joe Sanchez makes it a 2 out of 3 DBR Chevrolets inside the podium spots. Shane Wyatt in P4, rookie effort, and great one for the Simrap Market Chevrolet. Brandon Banks completes the top 5. Ross Harlow with a strong effort, he ends up in P6. Eddie Smith returning back to form, he finishes in 7th. Alex Huffman, great run at the end for the fellow rookie, he is in 8th place. Alex Muscarella, despite all that he went through, even facing the inside wall at one point off of turn 4, he recovers to a top 10 run. And Chris Shoemaker, silent but really effective ending for the 4-car Prestige Worldwide Racing, gets a top 10 after it.
Yeah, we're happy for you, Alex. We give you the commentator's curse every week. So good recovery there for you, and hope you can string together a couple more, maybe get a victory before it's all said and done. Curtis Kelly is going to bring it home in 11th with Chris Progar. Great finish for the 17. He had an up and down night there from the start. He'll get 12th. 13th goes to Brad Fulham in the 19 car. 14th spot will be Charles Stevens, a newer name here to the Sunoco Cup Series. Then it's Kip Easley in 15th. Justin Winters 16th. Richard Swavely up and down for 17th position. Held on to the lead lap, got back on strategy, got a top 20 day. Dustin Reeves, who had contact early, had a heavy contact with the wall a few times tonight, will get 18th. Sean Kalist at 19th. We didn't mention his name much tonight. And then it will be James Kunkel rounding out your top 20.
21st is the Season 1 champ of Garrett Brown. Then the list of cars that are 1 lap down or more, and it starts with Stephen Harlow, who had a strong run to begin, and it didn't really go his way near the end. His 22nd is where he stands. 23rd is league owner Dakota Curtis. Aaron Adcock falling 2 laps down in 24th. Top 25 for Ray Rogers, who went for a spin and hit the inside wall on the back straightaway. Zach Wilson, who had retired after wheeling the race car for so long, you got to give him all the credit, but we wished for definitely a better finish out of the 51. 26th is where he ends up. 27th for Casey Knighton. 28th for Austin Shoemaker, who suffered a pretty sustainable hit in that crash with Alex Muscarella off of turn 4. That's what enables his retirement from the race. Justin Erb also collected in a big accident. He is 29th. Justin Hendry rounding out our top 30. And then behind them, Logan Sturgeon, Wyatt Brackett, Colin Forrester, and Jesse Whittington, a bulk of them ending up in pretty sustainable accidents to take them out of this race. And you're right, Fast Banana getting 2 of these drivers beneath the top 30 certainly isn't going to help them in the point standings and won't help them in their chase for the team standings points lead. That's your 34-car field that rounds out the entire field from Speedway, Indiana. And with that, we get to visit a very special victory lane where we are caught up with Lawson Peel. And that's 3 on the season for you, Lawson. I'd say that you are the hottest driver in Sunoco Cup Series action right now. 3 wins over the last 4 races. What has that experience been like for you, and what is it like turning up the temperature at the right time?
It feels good because for some reason, all my seasons in this league kind of cycle that way. The beginning of the season's a little bit of a struggle, and then in the middle, kind of turn it on. So, yeah, really, really good to get some momentum. I had a lot of fun during that race. The setup was a lot better than the old setup that we used to have here, and it was tight or loose depending on how you drove it. You could run 5th or 4th, so it was a lot of options in the driver's hand, and just really fun race and good race with all those guys, and love this track a lot. I was a Jeff Gordon fan growing up, so in Indianapolis is a little bit more special to all the Jeff Gordon fans, I think. So certainly love to race here, and glad that the league admins like to put this oval on the schedule, even if NASCAR's running the road course and on their schedule, they've always put the oval on. So I've enjoyed that.
And Bradley was alluding to it earlier about the Jeff Gordon win in 1994 in the inaugural Brickyard 400 race here and Indianapolis. For you, this is your second W here at this speedway, and the last one was 2 years ago, almost to the day. July 31st, 2022 is when you picked up your first win here at this speedway. What is the unique way that you have to drive this track in comparison to a lot of others, and how does that fit your style? Because ever since I've seen you run at this track, whether it be this league or others, you've always had that knack for speed.
Yeah, so just I eat that bottom lane up quite a bit. Just wrapping that that lane below the white line, center exit particularly, continuing to stay down there and wrap the bottom, and then if you're in a dirty air nightmare behind a bunch of people, that can kind of help you, and just focus on getting good exits and straightaway speed. And again, it's another one of those rhythm tracks, so all about not overdriving the entries. And I felt like I was really good in 1 and 3 tonight, not so good in 2 and 4, but felt like I was really getting down into turn 1 and 3 really well, and just able to stay on the bottom and wrap the bottom.
Well, for you, despite the bottom lane really slicking off over the rest of this race, you were able to hold on. You and Joe Sanchez with top 3 efforts, Brandon Banks completing a DBR top 5 run. Who is it that makes it all possible for you as you guys move forward with the team standings points lead heading into the next race at Dover?
Yeah, thanks to you guys at VSPEED for doing the broadcast. Thanks to Sunoco for sponsoring the league, all the league admins, everybody on the admin team, Paul set up shop, and all my Drinking Bros teammates. And you said we're going to Dover next?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Brandon Banks won there last year, and that was awesome to see from the couch. So hopefully he can have another good run. We need to get him a win this year. So and Kip also. So appreciate all my teammates, and we'll be looking forward to that next week.
DBR's on a hot streak. It's definitely sure to say that. They're performing well. You're at the top of your game as always. Lawson, congratulations on your 3rd win of the season as you patrol onwards in this 2024 schedule, and looking forward to see you and everyone else take on the Monster Mile in 2 weeks from time.
Thank you, Kenneth, as always. Appreciate it.
That's Lawson Peel, the winner here tonight from Indianapolis, leading a bulk of laps on the way there. 54 this time at the longer race at 160 laps. We turn onwards to the second place runner who had a chance had there been more time. Austin Reedy is caught up with Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I'm down here with Austin Reedy right now, and Austin, I know maybe 5 more laps, what could have been, but you chased down Lawson Peel, who stayed in clean air for pretty much the entirety of that last stint. Did you feel like maybe 5 more laps you could have caught him? It looked like you had the speed there.
Yeah, I think I would have had a chance at least, but we just made a mistake when I tried to pass Joe there in turn 4, hit the apron, and that was probably my best chance to get around Joe and separate them guys from drafting the whole time. But yeah, a couple more laps, I think I would have a good shot at it. Was really good on the tires tonight, and it's just a bummer. I mean, but second place isn't horrible. I know we gained a lot of points in the regular season standings, so hopefully we can push that forward next week or 2 weeks from now.
Well, there's a lot that we could cover. We could talk about the fact that, every time you come to the racetrack, you're in a different location. You travel a lot for work, so you're never in a consistent setup. We could talk about, the teammates not having good nights, and you one of the few in Fast Banana that got the finish. Then we could go back and talk about the very beginning of this last stage. You take your pick on this. You said there was a mistake there that you could have got clear, but I mean, what's the takeaway from tonight?
I think that this is our strongest run all season, so this kind of brings back some confidence. We haven't really been that great. I feel like we've been kind of lucky not getting wrecked, and that's helped us hold that top spot in the points, or the regular season points. And I think tonight I really showed the speed that I can have at every track, and I was racing side by side basically all night, and I would still at the end of a run pull away from just about everybody, and I even ran down the alien himself. So it's good to see that I'm still capable of doing that. I think I just need to bring that back every week from here on out, and get focused up for these playoffs.
And every week from here on out, you've got 3 more opportunities here to kind of solidify that points lead and kind of lock some things in. We know that you're going to be in the playoffs here unless something dramatic would happen to you, and I don't think it will. but how much would a race win? You've got Darlington, Dover, and actually Dover, Darlington, and Daytona. How much would a race win mean right here in the regular season?
It would be great to just to get that first one of the season. It's something I always strive for every in every league that I run is just get one win. No matter what happens, get one win. But we're still looking for that this year. We got that's good tracks for us coming up. Dover's one of my better ones. So is Darlington, and then Daytona. Feel like I'm one of the better drafters in this league. So hopefully we can get it done at one of them.
Well, I hope you guys and Fast Banana get it all together. I think Daytona's a really good shot for you, and I look forward to seeing what you have there next week at Dover as well. But is there anybody you'd like to shout out here for second place before we let you go?
Yeah, Team Mer Designs, and then all the admins over here at Sunoco. I know this is their final season for the Cup Series. I know these boys have put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money to put the show on. It's pretty awesome. It's competitive racing every week, and cannot wait for this season to keep going.
Austin Reedy, second place here today from the Brickyard, looking to capitalize on the last three races going into the playoffs. Thank you for your time, man.
Well, that is Austin Reedy who closes out the top two. Then third place, Joe Sanchez in the number 55 Chevrolet, who makes it 2 DBR Chevrolets on the podium at the end of this one. Joe, seemed like you and Lawson flying at the beginning of the stage. It seemed for a lot of it, you guys did not let up despite some of the challenges by Austin Reedy and company. What was that like, and what was your entire race like speed-wise? It seemed like you had a lot of it with this 55 tonight.
Yeah, I really couldn't test how fast I could run till that last stage because I was in so much fuel conservation mode in the first two to try to make the whole stage. But I think, just that last run, I think I was a little bit quicker than Lawson, but I think I just stayed too close on him for too long, and it really burned up the tires. I think if I backed off a couple tenths there, I would have been able to maintain, that gap longer. But those last 5 laps, the tires were just so hot, and it would just four-wheel drift everywhere. So sucks being so close the past 2 weeks, but two third place finishes is still pretty good.
And I want to talk about the strategy. I think that was a big topic of conversation, specifically in stage one. It seemed like it dissipated quite a bit as the race progressed, but for you and the DBR team, what were those conversations like? Because I'd imagine probably pretty hectic in the first stage with everything going down, and then as stage 2 and 3 rolled onwards, it seemed like everybody, including you guys, got a handle of it.
Yeah, we really wanted to try to make the first stage on one set of tires so we could save a set there towards the end in case we had a late caution. And a lot of guys burned up that set pretty early on, but it unfortunately didn't really matter towards the end. But yeah, it was we had a lot of conversation of what we wanted to do in that first stage. That kind of first stage would dictate the whole race for us. So I think we still picked the right strategy, and to have 3 DBR guys in the top 5 is a pretty good day.
Well, now we head onwards to Dover Motor Speedway. Obviously, DBR pretty successful. The last time we were there, your teammate Brandon Banks getting the win, and you're a driver that already has a win at a concrete surface with Bristol earlier this season. So what are your thoughts about the Monster Mile as we take on that one?
Yeah, this is actually a pretty good stretch of tracks for me. I think Indy's one of my better ones. I think on paper wise, I think Dover is probably my best track that I perform at, but got a good stretch of Indy, Dover, and Darlington here. So hopefully I could get some stage points or get a win here before the playoffs start to get those extra playoff points.
Well, Joe, it's another solid finish this time from Indianapolis, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is actually your third place finish over the last several races. So I think that's 3 in a row, all 3s for you. But it's consistency, a lot of points to your tally, and I'm sure that'll mean a lot as we move forward through the rest of the regular season. Before we let you go, Joe, anybody in particular you want to thank for the run?
Thank you guys for putting on such a fantastic broadcast, and then all the league owners for putting on this amazing league. It's unfortunate this is going to be our last season here, but and then the entire DBR crew, and then Paul's Setup Shop for sponsoring us each and every year.
Well, Joe, of course, we always appreciate any time we get to talk to you, and this time it's another podium here from Speedway, Indiana. On behalf of all of us at VSPEED, congratulations on the run tonight to the checkered flag, and looking forward to Dover in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks, guys.
Joe Sanchez wraps up the podium here from IMS, and what a run it was for Drinkin' Bros Racing, further cementing themselves as the team standings leader, something we've been keeping tally of as of late. And I think, once again, Bradley, the cream has risen to the top. There's no stopping Lawson Peel, even if you put him back in 30th place. Remember, we were making that joke about those who start at the back on purpose to rummage their way through the field. I'm not sure if it was purposeful or not from Lawson Peel, but one thing is always certain with him. He can find his way to the front. He did so in a matter of time that was reasonable, and at the end, just held it down. That's what gets him the third win of the season.
DBR has just turned it up to 11 here in this last 4 or 5 races, and I think right now, if you're anybody that's not Joe Sanchez and Lawson Peel, especially Austin Reedy, you're just trying to do everything you can right now to get a victory or add on to the points. Try to keep as much of a gap possible between you and the 12, the 55, and some of these other guys that have just had consistent racing all season long. You can't afford to have a bad week. We're down to the last 3, so it only takes one, and then suddenly you could be just on the cutoff line. So yeah, there's so much racing left to be done, plenty of opportunities to end your season, and race number 12 coming up at Dover, Miles the Monster. It's gonna get some guys.
It's going to be really tough, and I'd imagine these last 3 races are going to mean the most for those who are still looking for either a golden ticket to advance them automatically into the playoffs, or if they're further back in point standings, what can they do desperation-wise to push themselves forward? The only thing I can say is that the only common thing with the next 3 races we'll have in the regular season is that they all start with the letter D. That's the only thing that they have in common. They are very different in their own way, which means we've got a lot of excitement for you here on VSPEED. Tune in with us 2 weeks from tonight, July 28th. We've got the race of a lifetime from Monster Mile and White Lightning. Dover Motor Speedway brings us race 11 of the schedule. We get to decide further who may advance to the playoffs with a win, who could stop Lawson Peel, and most importantly, can Brandon Banks go 2 in a row here from Dover, Delaware? We'll see. That is again in 2 weeks' time, July 28th on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find that coverage and every race of the Sunoco Cup Series live on youtube.com/VSPEED. Well, that'll do it for us here from the Sunoco Cup Series at Indianapolis. For Dakota Curtis and the entire admin team for all that they do to keep this series alive, for Adam Baker for all of his work he does at VSPEED, and for our crew on the broadcast tonight, for our producer and colleague in the booth, Bradley Cooper, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Speedway, Indiana. A big congratulations to Lawson Peel on his 3rd race win of the 2024 season. Dover up next.